Okay, it's 5:31, so we will go ahead and begin our combined December 17th Board of Education meeting. Ms. Raymond, please let the record show that all board members are present this evening. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Just a heads up to fellow board members, on the consent agenda, there was a request that we remove the curriculum resource adoption, so that has been removed from the consent agenda. At this time, I'll entertain a motion that the board approve the agenda as presented. Do I have a motion? Motion from Board Member Provance. Do I have a second? Second from Board Member Thomas Tate, and at this time we will vote.
I'm not in the meeting yet, Daniel.
Okay. We're going to go ahead and take a verbal vote. I'll start with you, Board Member Provance.
Aye.
Board Member Muhammad Khani.
We don't have it yet.
Okay. And chair votes aye. The motion carries 7-0. That brings us to item 2.03, the Pledge of Allegiance, and I will turn this over to Mr. Hall.
Good evening, board members. Tonight we have a very special treat for you. Members of the Springfield Youth Symphony are here to lead the Pledge of Allegiance, and they will also perform for us. Please join us in welcoming students Rosie Killingsworth, Zeke Kolb, Noah Pringer, Cale Slavens, and Christopher Upshaw. They are accompanied this evening by Carla Wooten, director, and Troy Cronkite, the assistant director. The Springfield Youth Symphony is the premier student orchestra in our area, renowned for its exceptional musicianship and rigorous training. To be a member of this prestigious ensemble, students must excel in their musical abilities and demonstrate a strong commitment to their craft. In addition to their orchestra involvement, students are required to take private lessons to refine their individual skills and participate in their school's band or orchestra programs. SPS plays a key role in providing this opportunity for talented youth in the Southwest Missouri region. Following the Pledge of Allegiance, the students will perform Fantasia on the Ukrainian Bell Carol. At this time, we invite you to join Rosie, Zeke, Noah, Cale, and Christopher as they lead the Pledge of Allegiance. Students, whenever you're ready, you may lead the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dr. Lathan and Ms. Kincaid, if you would come forward for a photo, we'll take a photo with the students before they perform. Okay. Thank you, students. We will now continue with honoring excellence this evening. Last month, the Missouri Society of Health and Physical Educators recognized 2 SPS employees and the Foundation for Springfield Public Schools for their work to encourage physical fitness. We want to invite Miranda Hefner, Brad Brummel, and Natalie Murdoch to please come forward. Miranda is a physical education teacher at Jeffries Elementary, and she was awarded the honor of Mo-Shaped Teacher of the Year in recognition of her passion and dedication to physical education and promoting student well-being. Brad received the Mo-Shaped Dr. Robert M. Taylor Professional Service Honor Award for his contributions in service to the health and physical education profession. The award honors his 17 years with Springfield Public Schools as a physical education advocate, first as a PE teacher and now as coordinator of health and physical education. The Foundation for Springfield Public Schools was presented with the Mo-Shaped Dr. Tom Lowry Advocacy Award for its ongoing support of physical education and active classrooms. Natalie, we appreciate the support of the Foundation and its donors whose generosity made it possible to provide movement-based learning to teachers and students throughout our district. As a result of these efforts, teachers have reported increased student engagement, improved focus and academic performance, and a greater sense of joy in their classrooms. Miranda, Brad, and Natalie, congratulations on these achievements, and thank you for your dedication to fostering positive health and well-being for all of our students. Congratulations. Tonight, we conclude our recognition of staff members who are celebrating significant service anniversaries this school year. It is my pleasure to introduce employees who are celebrating 25 years with Springfield Public Schools so we may recognize their dedication to SPS and our students. Please come forward as I call your name. We have Leslie Ballou and Julie Brown. And I want to check to see if Catherine Williams was able to join us. Is Catherine with us? Congratulations. I don't think so. Okay. We'll recognize Leslie and Julie. Leslie Ballou is a Human Resources Employment Coordinator here at Kraft Administrative Center. Congratulations to Leslie on 25 years.
Thank you, Steve.
Congratulations. Julie Brown is a first grade teacher at Disney Elementary School. Congratulations to Julie for 25 years of service with SPS.
You go right ahead. I'll let you do your thing, but One more, sorry.
Once again, we congratulate and we thank all of those employees who have received recognition for distinguished service this year. To conclude our recognitions tonight, we are pleased to honor the December Employee of the Month. The recipient is a third grade teacher at Sequiota Elementary School, and the nomination, this is what the nomination said. She is a phenomenal educator. She loves her students with a passion and determination that is unparalleled. She doesn't just keep that gift to herself. She shares it with our building as our TST coordinator. Her patience, her hard work, and her attention to detail have been so pivotal in helping struggling students get the supports they need. She meets with staff to serve as a resource to them on interventions and supports they can use to help struggling students. It's a lot of work, but she has a heart for doing what is right for students and is so organized in her delivery of information to staff. Because of her, the TST process at our school will continue to be successful. Let's watch this video to learn more about Bobby Griffin.
Heck yeah!
When you desire a person you want your kids to have, your own kids, that's what I think of when I think of Bobby Griffin. She loves kids. The reason that I'm here is the kids, truly. The relationships that I get to build with the kids that is what keeps me coming back. I love to not only watch them grow academically, but I like to watch them grow just as young people. And third graders really start developing a sense of humor, and they're just funny, and I just love them. She is in it to win it. She does what's best for kids all the time, regardless of a situation. Building relationships is incredibly important to her, and her students sense that. They feel that. They know that they're safe, they're taken care of. Sequiota is a very much community place, and anytime in the community when someone talks about a teacher that they love, unanimously, students say, "Mrs. Griffin, is she still there?" Having been here 13 years, what's so great about that is that I've had the chance to teach multiple siblings in the same family. So I have a family in particular that I have taught all three of their kids, and the oldest is a senior this year, and he's actually coming back to my room in January to be my A+ tutor. It's just so wonderful to get the opportunity to watch these kids continue to grow once I get to know their families. TST Teacher Support Team is a pretty big job. Loving kids is easy, teaching kids is hard. And so having someone to be able to be a viable source for our building to go to and in need of that instruction and need of that support is like immeasurable. I cannot thank her enough for the time and energy that she's taken to do that for our staff. And really what motivates that is kids. She does it because it's what's right for kids. And so that really just defines who she is as a teacher. Grinch Day is the thing that I think kids carry a huge memory with them for future generations. My collection of Grinches, many of them are from students, so I just add to my collection every year. We really incorporate it with kindness. You are, as third graders, developing lifelong habits, and the things you start to do now really will become your habits later, so let's just form those habits and make it into a positive thing. You know, it's important how we treat other people, and this is where my heart is, and this is where I'm meant to be.
Mrs. Griffin, would you please come forward?
I'm a proud mom for like a second. You're doing, yay. Thank you. Okay.
Somebody else want to take a photo? Come on. Oh, absolutely. Take your time. No, you're
We have a
good.
large crowd.
And that concludes for this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen. All right. That brings us to item 3.01 of our agenda, our public comment portion. The Board of Education welcomes comments about the issues being discussed. The board uses this time in our meeting to listen to the public, but will not comment or engage with the public during this meeting. The board allows for up to 10 speakers per public comment period. The board president will call on the individuals in the order in which they signed up. Substitutions are not permitted. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes and will be timed by the board secretary. Comments must be acceptable for a business and family-friendly environment. Inappropriate language, gestures, or personal attacks will not be tolerated. It's inappropriate to address the board about individual students or individual staff members by name in open meetings. If you have concerns about individuals, these concerns should be addressed through the appropriate administrative supervisors, either in the schools or the district office. If you have materials that you'd like to share, please place them on the tray on the podium, and they'll be distributed to the board members following the portion of our public comment time in the meeting. This evening, we have 5 public commenters. Our first public comment is from Nathan Jordan. Nathan Jordan. Okay. Moving on to Sarah Smythe. Did I say it right? Okay.
That's correct. Not Smith. Okay. Good evening, board. Good evening, board and superintendent. My name is Sarah Smythe. I am the SNEA Director for Facility Services. Tonight, I want to emphasize the critical need to reinstate annualized pay for our workforce. At the time, SPS made the decision to eliminate this option, several excuses were given. One was that Oracle did not have the capability to develop such a program. Since then, we have learned it absolutely does, as it consistently done so for salaried employees. Another concern SPS raised was that hourly employees were not being compensated accurately because they would underreport their hours on their written timesheets, often working during lunch and staying late due to unforeseen circumstances. The implementation of Kronos has addressed and resolved this issue. This issue in no way was or is influenced by annualized pay. According to the Missouri Labor Department, many school districts in Missouri continue to use annualized pay for their employees. The HR director of a local school district noted that annualized pay is beneficial for employees because it provides consistent paychecks and ensures steady income throughout the year. Losing annualized pay has created financial burdens on our staff that cannot simply be fixed by budgeting as well as they are so frequently told to do. Instead of having 12 months to pay their insurance premiums, it is now divided over 9 months. The same with their retirement contribution and any other deductions they are responsible for. Because of the higher paychecks, their tax rate is affected, often withholding more than necessary. One of the biggest challenges people have faced since the elimination of annualized pay is struggling financially around the holidays. For example, the full week off during Thanksgiving results in 9 and 10-month employees missing out on 2 extra days of pay. Similarly, during Christmas break, these employees are shorted by 6 days. This year marks the first time that hourly employees will feel the additional day of pay loss due to leap year. It's difficult to understand how some people can budget effectively when they are consistently missing so many days of pay. As a school board, Missouri state statute gives you the authority to add items to the agenda that are directly related to the governance and operation of the district. I hope that as a collective, you will prioritize what is best for the 1,100 hourly employees in this district and amend policy GBDB back to include language that afford them the much-needed benefit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. Our next public commenter is Mark Sears.
Good evening. My name is Mark Sears. I'm the SER, or SRO representative for the NEA. Tonight I was going to sit here or stand here and read this, but when I left my office this afternoon, I got a couple phone calls that said, this needs to be personal. This needs to be coming from an individual that wears that uniform and to represent the people that I protect in this district. Yesterday and the day before, I was working on this speech. Yesterday, I was walking around my building thinking and pondering about the numbers, what I needed to say, what I needed to get across. But at the same time I was working on this speech, a 15-year-old girl in Wisconsin walked into a school room and shot her teacher, another student, and wounded 4 other students, 3 critically. I am up here today to ask you not to cut the positions of SROs. I feel that SROs are the frontline security of this district, and that we are the important part that people look to us to be protectors. I can stand up here and tell you that calls for service has increased. We respond to 4,700 calls a year, almost the same as what we're going to do this year. I can tell you that assault calls have come up 133% since last year. I can tell you that weapons calls, we average 1 every 3 days. Our job is important. And right now, we only have 25 officers working the street. 2 are not filled, and they're not filled because we haven't been able to find qualified applicants. Every department in this state can't find qualified applicants, but we are actively searching for qualified applicants. What no department in this state is doing is cutting personnel from their department. Yeah, we cannot find staff. We cannot find replacements, but we are actively looking. I can tell you now, the 2 positions that we're missing right now can get filled and will get filled. But another position we are going to lose this year because of retirement, leaving us 10% down from our staffing ability, which is a lot. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mark. Our next public commenter is Mary Ann Bonetti.
Hello, my name is Mary Ann Benetti, and I am the president of the Robertson Neighborhood Association. And I am here to talk about the Robertson Neighborhood School. It has been said that a community school is the heart of a neighborhood, and in our neighborhood, our heart has been broken. And there is a lot of people very sad, and a space that needed children is empty. I brought a copy for each of you of our proposal that we sent to you some time ago, which includes our vision that we put together for what we saw would be a good community use of that property. I also would like to include in that presentation that I attended a Zoom conference last week presented by Francine Pratt with the Community Partnership of the Ozarks in Prosper, Springfield. As you may be aware, Francine is co-leader of the Gun Safety and Violence Reduction Collaboration that has been funded by the City of Springfield and the Missouri Foundation for Health. Through data and other research, it was determined that it is crucial for the success of this collaboration to partner with the people in the areas where gunshots are reported the most. Our neighborhood, Robertson neighborhood, is one of those areas. We want to partner with this program to reach out to our youth and to give them a space to share. Which brings me to my point. I have been contacted by two investors who have put in proposals for this property. Their names are Giles Stevens and David Stoker, both of whom are very supportive of Robertson Neighborhood Association and have offered us space in their building for a community center of our own and the open space and playground to be our park. Our neighborhood does not have a park, and we haven't had one for some time. It is something that our neighborhood needs desperately. We need these community spaces to build our community and to support our children. Right now, we present our events, and we put on an event almost every month that we sponsor for the neighborhood, and we only ask for donations in return. And right now, we have that and are grateful to present those on a parking lot. We believe that this would be better served and our community would be better served by presenting in a park.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Your time has elapsed.
Yes, I saw that. Thank you very much. Please remember us when you make your decisions.
Our final speaker this evening is Dr. Wes Zonker.
Good evening. The majority of my years as an elementary teacher and principal with SPS took place in the 1900s. Back in the day, we talked about preparing students for the 21st century, though I know now we really had no clue what that meant. The world we live in today is vastly different from that of the 20th century. A snowballing of information is now available at our fingertips, brought about by broadband internet, smartphones, email, e-books, e-news, streaming services, and many more. Adaptability is the key to keeping up with changes. When we first started using email in the district, I had to encourage staff to use it. I'd send emails at varying times of the day or night. The first, fifth, 10th person to respond to my email would get a Coke, candy bar, free time, etc. Adaptability. Given the technological advances made in the last 25 years, I struggle to understand how some board members are fixated on having textbooks for every part of the curriculum. I now drive an all-electric vehicle. It didn't come with a printed manual. If I need instructions, I pull it up on the car's computer screen. Heck, my car doesn't even have a spare tire or a jack. Adaptability. Some, however, just don't want to adapt. I met a young man last week, probably in his 20s, and he said he did not like electric vehicles. He grew up on gas. My response, who didn't? You know, it reminded me of a parent in the 90s who said we didn't need to waste money adding libraries to our elementary buildings because he grew up with textbooks, pencils, and paper, and that was good enough. Not by half. I recently told a woman looking at Kodak batteries in the checkout line, it's sad how Kodak has been reduced to selling batteries. Now, some of you will remember Kodak was once a household name for everything photography, cameras, film, paper. And even though Kodak developed the first digital camera, they were slow to embrace the move to digital technology. Companies like Sony and Canon embraced it and left Kodak behind. Reduced to batteries, a lack of adaptability. I won't live long enough to see what life will be like in the 22nd century, but many of our youngest students, and certainly their children, will. I can't fathom what our world will look like in the year 2100, but I'll bet we won't be using textbooks to prepare students for the 22nd century. SPS has a process for selecting curriculum materials, committees led by professionals who want the very best for students. They should be encouraged to think outside the box to prepare our students for the future, not locked inside a box with 20th century teaching methodologies.
Thank you, Wes. That concludes our public comment portion of our meeting, which brings us to item 4, our consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion that the board approve consent agenda items 4.01 through 4.04. Motion from Board Member Thomas Tate. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second from Board Member Mohammed Khani, and we will vote at this time. The motion that the board approve the consent agenda items passes 7-0. That brings us to item 5.01, curriculum resource adoption. I'll entertain a motion that the Board of Education approves the recommended instructional resource materials as presented. Do I have a motion? Motion from Board Member Thomas Tate. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Vice President Bruner. Are there any comments at this time?
I did want to make a comment. Thank you. Well, I want to begin by thanking the board for delaying this vote because it allowed for input and much-needed discourse. I also want to profoundly thank the individuals that stepped outside of their comfort zone to reach out and provide feedback. And this would include staff and parents and students and patrons in general. And this allowed me to take this information and put it together and share it with Dr. Lathan so that action can be taken. I'd like to address three components that I had some concerns about. The first was Newsela. Second was the physics curriculum and the foreign language, principally the Spanish curriculum, as we only offer Japanese at one school, and it's primarily Spanish. So with reference to Newsela, I have been assured that the usage of Newsela will always be in line with Missouri Learning Standards, and that the content is carefully selected to be age appropriate and free of bias and curated solely for educational purposes. I think the most important thing I can say about Newsela is that this guarantee extends beyond the English language curriculum for 6th through 12th grade. It encompasses all the curriculum at Springfield Public Schools and all the teaching that happens, and our teachers certainly do a really good job with the curriculum that they have. And I'm also reassured because from a broad perspective, there has been significant improvement in the processes. And when you have that, the results that are realized are apparent. And along the way, because every year as the curriculum cycle processes and goes through, we continue to improve our curriculum resources and the way that we deliver them. And along the way, the concerning instances have been addressed. And so from a board governance level, that really matters to me, and that's my expectation, and it will continue to be my expectation, and I will certainly remain vigilant on that front. I am disappointed that we do not have a printed resource, and in part, that's because of fiscal constraints. And with that, I'm going to kind of segue into the Spanish and physics curriculum. So I think it goes without saying that regardless of where you stand on textbooks or consumables for that matter, it significantly improves the ease of delivery for teachers, for year to year, classroom to classroom. And that it's, in general, still today, it may not be in the next century, but still today, it's more favorable for students and parents or their guardians in the home environment. And I want to make sure that I state this, and Dr. Lathan, please correct me if I'm wrong. So the curriculum that I support, and I will be voting yes on, that we are adopting, does not prohibit us from continuing to look for and seek a resource that would provide those gaps that we have right now, for example, with Spanish or with physics, right? It doesn't mean that we're committing to not having it. It just means that right now, this is the curriculum we have, and we always have the option to find a resource to add into our curriculum. And the reason we don't have it is because we haven't found the thing that is optimal for our students, right? Because it has to be right for us, our students in the state of Missouri. And so I just, the door isn't closing, and so I asked for continued feedback. In fact, I brought a book, and I dropped off with Dr. Shaw to pass on to Dr. Lathan, was it yesterday? Last Friday. And it just happens to be a Spanish book that's used by another school that seems to be working. So yes, through the normal process, we haven't been able to curate the exact resource that's perfect for us, but that doesn't mean we're going to stop. And so I just wanted to provide that the clarity that I got, and that happened only because of all the feedback that I received. So thank you. Continue sharing. It's very valuable. And I'll stop. And so did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Thank you. And I would just want to thank the board. I think it was really helpful to wait and chew this a little bit longer.
Any other board member comments at this time? Okay, there's been a motion and a second, so at this time we will vote. The motion that the board approve the recommended instructional resource materials as presented passes 7-0. That brings us to item 6.01, our annual financial audit, and Dr. Shaw is with us.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to be able to introduce Mr. Brian Eckhoff with Westbrook Company. They are the firm that has spent the last 2-3 months working diligently with our team, Kara Stasel and her business service team, to come to you tonight to be able to present the 23-24 financial audit. Before I turn it over to him, I do want to just publicly thank Kara and her team for the work that they have done. It's a lot of hours, it's a lot of information that they ask of our team to be able to provide to them so that they can dig in and look for all the things that we're doing wrong, but they can't ever find anything. So we're thankful for the work that they do, but I will turn it over to Brian to present the audit. Thank you. There's a clicker. We don't have a clicker. Here. Perfect.
Good evening. I'm Brian Eckhoff with Westbrook & Company. We're going to do a brief overview of your audited financial statements. If you have any questions as I'm going through, don't hesitate to stop me and we can address them. There we go. As you can see on the screen, the independent auditor's report, the red box says it's presented fairly, so this is a clean audit opinion or a good audit report. So exactly what you want to see in your audited financial statements. This is the balance sheet as of June 30th. You can see the district had right at $350 million in assets as of June 30th between the three funds. Special Revenue Fund is your teacher's fund. Common practice for school districts is to take that to a zero balance. Your general fund was at about $109 million. Debt service was at $27 million, and then the capital projects were at $214 million. And you can see down below the restricted fund balances. In the general fund, we had the launch program of about $1.6 million. Your debt service is always shown as restricted because that is by outside sources. And your capital projects fund had about $182 million of unspent bond proceeds. In the committed portion, there were projects that the board had approved prior to June 30th that had not been paid out that will not be funded by bond proceeds. That's the $2.3 million that's sitting in the capital projects fund. Down under assigned, your capital projects fund remaining balance is always shown as assigned. That's the $29 million. And then in the general fund, you have the food service. That is the dollars the food service has made over the prior years. You're required to track that by DESI's standards. That will continue to decline as we continue to go through and lose money on food service. And then student activities was 10.9 million. That's your clubs and organizations. And then the unassigned balance of 94.8 million in the general fund, that's your day-to-day operations of the district. This is the statement of revenues and expenditures and changes in fund balance. You can see we had 434 million in revenues and 443 million in expenditures. So we had a decrease in fund balance of 8.6 million. However, if you look at the red box, you can see the general fund had an increase in fund balance of 9.3 million, while your capital projects fund decreased by 19.5 million. So that's the spending down of those bond proceeds. This is a summary of your debt. We can see we started the year with about 493 million in debt and ended the year with 475 million. Standard payments for about 17.6 million, and then you'll be paying 16 million this year. This is what makes up the 475 million worth of debt for the bond side of things. On the direct borrowings, we just had one lease left, and that will be paid off this year. This is a 5-year comparison of your revenues, and you can see your federal dollars have kind of continued to increase while your state dollars have stayed flat. Local dollars have also kind of gone down, but that also is affected by bond premiums and things like that. This is a 5-year comparison of expenditures. Your salaries and benefits are about 78% of your overall budget. That's pretty consistent with most districts. Overall, you can see expenditures. If you look at the numbers, it looks like they've declined this year. However, it's due to last year you had a significant principal payment that paid down. So that's why you went from 475 million to 442 million. This is a 5-year comparison of your reserve ratio and average daily attendance. Reserve ratio this year is at 30%, which we consider a healthy, financially stable school district. And your average daily attendance this year actually increased to 22,880, which is not what we're seeing in most districts statewide, so it's nice to see an increase in average daily attendance. While we're here, we look at Missouri laws and regulations. If we come across anything, we bring it to your attention. And you can see here that it says it's fairly stated, so that's another clean opinion or good audit report. We also look at internal control. We don't give an opinion on internal control, but we use it in risk assessment. If we come across any deficiencies in internal control, we bring it to your attention. And you can see in the red box it says that we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control. As a district, you expend more than $750,000 worth of federal dollars, so you're required to have a federal audit, also known as a single audit or a uniform guidance audit. This report shows that we did not have any identify any deficiencies on the federal side, and this is the summary of those results. Unmodified means clean opinion or good audit report, so exactly what you want to see. No all the way down, except for the bottom one, means there's no findings. Towards the bottom, you can see that we tested the special education cluster and the education stabilization fund. So that's where we did the majority of our testing, spent all of our time. And then at the bottom, you can see that you did not qualify as a low-risk auditee. When they wrote uniform guidance, they wrote it for accrual basis financial statements. You have cash basis financial statements. 99% of the school districts in the state of Missouri do have cash basis financial statements. Just know that it will require us to audit a higher percentage of your federal programs. Do not change to accrual basis financial statements, not what you want to do. And none and none means there was no findings. So overall, a good year financially for the district. Just spent down some bond proceeds. No comments on internal control, federal programs, or the state side of things, and then no recommendations in the required communication. So a really clean, good audit.
All right.
Questions for me?
Thank you, Brian, and thank you for your time with the board previously to do a deeper dive into this. We appreciate that, and every year it's something different. So are there any questions for Brian at this time? Okay, and I know that we had an opportunity to ask questions to you earlier, so thank you again. And I want to echo what Dr. Shaw said. Thank you to Kara Stasel and her team. Even though she couldn't be here this evening, we recognize all the hard work that went into that. So thank you, Brian. I will entertain a motion that the board accept the 23-24 financial audit as presented. Motion from Board Member Mohammed Khani, second from Board Member McCoskey, and at this time we will vote. The motion that the board accept the financial audit as presented passes 7-0. That moves us to item 7.01, our APR, and Dr. Holt is here this evening to present.
Hello, I have some colleagues that'll be joining me. Can you go back one for me, Sam? I have some people that'll be joining me, so I'm going to go ahead and get them situated. Okay, maybe. It's not, there we go. So if you guys want to come on up, I'll get you situated so that we don't have to burn any time a little bit later. So we'll do Hickory, and Yoda, and then Holland on the chart.
Edge of glory.
I don't know what was left on that one from the last time. I don't know which one that was from public comments.
We're ready.
All right. Okay, so thank you, Board of Education, for the opportunity to be with you tonight to talk about the annual performance report. This is something that we do each and every year when we finally have the official green light from DESE. And so we're here to bring you an update about the status of Springfield Public Schools. So here is how we will spend our time tonight. We will just do a brief overview and reminder to you about MSIP 6 and accreditation with relationship to our APR score and how that is factored. I will not spend a lot of time there. I'm happy to have that conversation with you at a later time if you'd like to know the nitty-gritty. But I think it is important for us to situate since it's been a minute since we had a conversation about that. And then we will dig into data. You'll recall that this is a 3-year accumulation of data and information that led us to where we are. And so you'll see that both for our MAP assessment and our end of course assessments, as well as some comparables by subgroup and to the state, to our state comparables, which I think is important for us to note as well. And then we've got an opportunity to hear from some spotlight schools about what's actually happening practically in the field. And then we'll talk about current and future work, where we're headed, what we hope to double down on, and some opportunities that we have for improvement. So again, we'll spend just a little bit of time talking about APR scoring and MSIP 6 since this is the first year. Obviously, these goals and priorities are very familiar to you, but much of the work will live tonight and the conversation will live in success-ready students. But it would not be without mentioning that collaborative culture comes into play as we think about the academic achievement of our students and how we communicate and are transparent about what's going on our campuses. This also is in high alignment with Dr. Lathan's superintendent goals, which happen to be all the rest of our goals as well. And so living in the space of objective 1.1 and 1.3 will really be how we allocate the time and the connection we make tonight to the work that we're doing on campuses and in our academic teams to support student achievement. So as we think about MSIP 6 key points, you know that this information was made public on November 25th. Happy Thanksgiving break to us all. And that this was an accumulation of 3 years of data that calculate what we call a composite score that really lets us know our accreditation status. So the data we're talking about is the 21-22 school year, 22-23, and 23-24, which gives us that 3-year band. So one thing to note related to academic growth. So the calculation for growth did not actually change from last year to this year, but how the point allocations were given did. So we'll see that in the next couple slides. Again, not going to spend a ton of time, but want you to know how those points were distributed. And as well, the 23-24 data included 8 points for us for response to standards as part of that new continuous improvement metric. And I will let you know we did get all 8 points, which is great. Woohoo. So again, changes to growth scoring. When we talked last year, what we reported is that there were 3 categories, and you can see that the state has shifted back to 4 categories, being that target, on target, approaching, and emerging. They had a calculation with relationship to rank in the state, and that being the determination for how we got points for growth. But the category placement will now be the actual metric for how we get those points specific to student growth. Here are those bands. So what you see for 22-23 really speaks to, you can see the point delineation that was given. and we moved to 23-24, now giving those whole number points in 4 separate categories. So you get your full points, right, and that would be 12 points in ELA and math, 4 for science and 4 for social studies, and then it breaks down accordingly as we progress down the bands. So again, not a lot of information we can talk about it later, but I just want you to know that that was a change that impacted how our district is scored and how our schools are scored. Another quick reminder is about student groups. So I think it's important that that we recall that the state identifies groups who historically underperform below the state average, and you get into that category in 5 ways, right? So our low-income students, our students with disabilities, our English language learners, our Black students, and our Hispanic students. So when you see student group in the data, that is who we are talking about. So I think it's important to bring that up to consciousness again. And before we dig into the data, just one more slide here. You remember that the shift to MSIP6 and APR now gives us a band of points that we can allocate in what they're calling continuous improvement. So 70%, majority, are still coming based on achievement status and growth. Those success-ready metrics, which you know, just a reminder, those are the kindergarten, those success-ready metrics, which are specific to CCR, grad rate, grad follow-up, and then we shift into continuous improvement, and there are other metrics like the kindergarten assessment, specifically the ICAP, as well as our ability to survey and ask the specific questions that DESE requires. So that gives us the opportunity to gain additional points. There are also best practice pieces to MSIP6. Those are not scored, but they are things that they look for and ask us to essentially defend when we think about how our district is doing. So just a reminder to you about those buckets and how that's allocated. So here is our district composite score. The blue band indicates the 3 years of data that we're talking about tonight. And then you can see how that will progress in that trend as we move across the years, right? So this is 3 years of averaged APR data that we're gonna see. Here is the specific accreditation status for Springfield Public Schools. So when we look at the amount of points we get for performance and continuous improvement, you can see that we scored 76.6, which lands us in the accredited band for that 3-year band of data. It's also important to note just the isolated year, which would be FY24, which is that last 23-24 assessment data, right? Because we know it's a 3-year trend, but how did we do just for that year, right? We received 156.5 points, which earned us 78.2% of the points for that specific assessment year. So what does that trend look like? So you can see those going from the bottom up. So our 2022 at the bottom up to 24, which is current year. And we made a 4.5% increase over the 3-year spread. So trend line is positive. We are getting more points year over year as we think about improving an academic achievement in Springfield Public Schools. So what does that look like when we look at our specific APR card? So when we think about all students, every content area increased MPI from the 23 assessment year to the 24 assessment year, with the exception of the science student group, which decreased by almost or less than 1% of MPI. So our greatest areas of improvement, if you zero in on that, are social studies specifically, where we saw overall students with a 14.2 point increase and the student group at 15.1 when we're talking about the MAP Performance Index or the MPI. We also saw that student group in every content area increased from 23 to 24, with the exception of science student group, which decreased again less than 1%. So we think about our CCR metrics, which you can see if you look a little ways down on the slide, which is under success-ready students. So we're approaching there, and what we know is that these calculations also incorporate the count of the students who take the assessment, but also their score on the assessment. So more students taking the assessment and more students scoring well on the assessment will help us improve that specific target. Obviously, getting 100 are all of the points for our 4-year grad rate, which continues to be a positive, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
Hey,
so
Nicole.
that is specific to the performance points.
Real quick, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not asking a question, but Thank you for clarifying a second ago when you said MPI, what that is.
Math Performance Index.
Could you, as we go through the rest of this, could you continue to say what the acronyms are
Yes.
to help, I think, everybody?
Is that the only one that I've said so far, or is there another one?
No, I mean, APR keeps coming up. We know what that is.
Annual
but
Performance Report. Yeah.
If you would, that'd be helpful to
I
me,
would love
certainly.
to.
Thank you.
Yep. And if I don't, just stop me and ask. So here is the continuous improvement part of the scorecard, right? So that was performance. Now we're shifting to continuous improvement. So you can see this has to do with our district strategic plan, as well as those pieces I talked about with the kindergarten assessment, the ICAP, and attendance. Of course, there's the other required documents, which is our ASBR, or the Annual Secretary of Board Report, our audit, and then just our submission of the data in general. You heard mentioned a little bit earlier that while we still see a 0 in the attendance bucket, what we know is that we increased our proportional attendance from 75.1 to 79.3 in the FY24 school year, which is not without a lot of effort and work by the people you see sitting here and all the people on our campuses, worth celebrating 100%. And we get 1 point if we get to 80%. So we are literally right there. So when I say we are going to have that point next year, we are going to have that point next year. Yes? Okay. So I think it's important to note we were very close, but when you look at that, it may look like we are far away, but in reality, we were not. So now we're going to spend a little bit of time shifting and drilling down to the by building level APR data. So before we dig into this, I want to remind you, this is the APR percent earned. This is not the number of proficient or advanced, right? Not the percentage of students on that campus that are proficient or advanced. This is the percent they were towards scoring the total points on their APR scorecard, right? So for elementary, that number was 88 points. So if I'm looking at this, yep. So when you're looking at APR percent earned, you're not thinking in the lane of percent of students proficient or advanced on this slide. This slide is only talking to the building APR score, right? So when we think about that 70% performance piece, that's what we're looking at here, but it's not talking about, this is how many points they got to their scorecard, the percent they are close to that. So if I take Bissett, for example, and last year, 76.1, they were 76.1% of getting their total points. So we'll get to the proficient or advanced in another slide, but this is just their APR. So you're seeing in that first column, the schools with their free and reduced lunch percentage, or their FRL. So I think it's important to know where they situate with relationship to that. Then you're seeing the 3 years of data and the percentage of points they were on their scorecard. The final column delineates the change from the first assessment year to the final assessment year, with the color denoting if that is trending positively or negatively. So I think it's important for you to have context for how that looks, right? So this is the first swatch of our elementary buildings. This is the next group of our elementary buildings. Same data displayed in the same way, with the change over time noted in the far right column. And the final batch of elementary specifically. So we'll display similar data here for our middle school campuses. So what you see right here is our primary middle schools with the addition of Wilson's Creek. Same notation for percent of students FRL. Same 3 years of data, and final column reflecting the change over the assessment window. Similarly here for our K-8 campuses, those that serve students in kindergarten all the way through 8th grade, their FRL, 3 years of data, and the change over time. And finally, building APR scorecard data for our high schools. FRL listed, as well as the change over time and individual years of data. So that's the APR side of the house. And now we're going to shift into something that is probably more of what you expected to see, which would be our MAP and EOC percent proficient or advanced. So you're going to get the chance to look at historical data here in that 3-year band, as well as some comparative data to the state. We are not, in this particular piece, going to dive into similar, well, we are going to dive into similar districts. And I have additional information if we want to go down that road a little bit. But the more important part is the building spotlights, which we're going to get to towards the end for you to hear the things that you saw on those slides just now relative to some of these specific campuses' APR scores. So what you see here is a 3-year trend, district comparison to the state. So the blue line is Springfield Public Schools. The red line is the state in totality. And you can see the trend in the years assessed in this cycle of MSIP accreditation. So from 22 where we scored versus where the state scored, on through 24, or 23 and through 24. So when we think about ELA specifically and our students in grades 3 through 5, we see a positive trend line, and we are now outperforming the state, which is a shift from last year to this year. And you also see the same, we continue to trend positively for grades 6 through 8 and continue to remain outperforming the state with relationship to ELA in our middle schools. Here is the same band of data, but for the content area of mathematics. So while we see a positive trend line in grades 3 through 5, we are still underperforming the state. But in grades 6 through 8, also a positive trend line, outperforming the state for the last 2 years. Our students in grades 5 and 8 take an additional MAP assessment in the content area of science, and you can see the same 3 years of data and same comparison to the state. So for students in 5th grade, we remained relatively flat from 22 to 23 with a significant jump in last year's assessment data, now outperforming the state. And you can see in grade 8 that significant dip from last year, but an increase this year and outperforming the state in 8th grade science. We move to EOC, and you know those tested content areas listed here: biology, English 2, and government. So biology has a positive 3-year trend line, and we are getting very close to closing the gap between our performance and the state. English 2, a slight increase there, while the state showed a pretty significant decrease there. And for government, we saw a dip between 22 to 23's performance and a gain in government, a pretty significant one. I think our largest gain actually, and now outperforming the state. 6.8% increase there. And finally, EOC data for high school math, Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry. So Algebra 1, a little bit stagnant for 22 to 23 with a gain in 24, but still underperforming the state. Algebra 2, big jump there, and I believe we are right underneath the state now. And of course, we have lots of conversations at this table around geometry, so I'm just going to go ahead and give you the number now. It was 40 students who took the geometry EOC, so while they declined, still scoring significantly proficient. And we already talked about it, and you saw it reflected in the scorecard data, but we continue to have the largest graduating class as well as the highest percent grad rate for the last 5 consecutive years. So you see that continuing to increase and over 7% up from the state's graduation rate, which is a celebration and kudos to the hard work that continues to be happening in our high schools on a daily basis. So now, probably shifting to more information that you were expecting to see on the first part of the presentation that we're now landing. So these are our percentages of proficient or advanced when we think about our grade levels and our content areas. So on this side, you see ELA, MAP, and EOC. So as you look down, just be mindful, we're going by grade right? So all of the tested grades in that content area, including the EOC. So sometimes we separate this out by assessment, but we put it all together so that you could see it there. So we saw increases in 5 of the 7 grade levels with a slight 1.1% decrease in 3rd grade and a 0.3% decrease in 8th grade. When you think about the percent of students that scored proficient or advanced by grade level in ELA. Here is the math data, same, any tested area, whether it was MAP or EOC. Increases in 4 of the 9 grade levels, minimal decreases around 1% or a little less in other grades, excluding the geometry number, which we already talked about. 7th grade did see the highest increase in MAP tested grade levels at 4.3%, with a 16.1% increase in Algebra 2, which we already saw on one of the prior slides. And here is science. Again, 5th and 8th grade MAP and the EOC in biology, as well as the government data that you saw on the prior EOC slide. Now we shift to student group. So when you think about how our APR scorecard was situated, you had all students, and then you had the delineation of student group. So you can see those specifically listed here for the content area of ELA for the 3 assessment years. All students here is going to mean all. Student group is going to mean student group. A reminder that direct cert is our free and reduced lunch, or those that are not in that category. And then the others are self-explanatory with relationship to our demographic information. So we can see that majority are improving with a couple minor dips in a few. Yes, not free and reduced for non-direct. So direct cert is our FRL students, so anyone qualifying for free or reduced lunch. Non-direct would be our full pay students. That's just the DESE terminology that they use. Here is our math MAP student group data. Lots of green with relationship to trends across the 3 years for all of those in the student group. And here is our science data. The non-ELL white one that you see at the bottom just means that there was no change from the 21-22 to 22-23. It was exactly the same score. And last but not least, before we get to our building spotlights, it's always something that we look at to think strategically about how schools who look like us for the most part across the state are performing or scoring in relationship to how we in SPS are performing. So what you see here are the statewide comparables that we look to see how they perform on similar assessments across the state. So before we show those percentages, we wanted you to know the enrollment and the FRL status of the districts that we compare ourselves to, because it's important to note how closely or far they are in similarity to us, both in size and in status. So here are those comparisons. This is the ELA piece. We're talking specifically around the percent of students proficient or advanced on the assessments total, so all of our ELA assessments regardless of grade level. So you can see Springfield ranks number 1 when we are comparing ourselves both to the state and to our comparable districts. We saw a 0.5 change in ELA, and you can see the change in our other comparable districts as well as how they rank from 1 through 8. Similarly, here is math. You can see that the state is the top performer in total when we think about proficient or advanced. That we are tied with Columbia for number 2, which would really be number 1 if we took the state out, I'm just saying. And you can see that our change was a little bit less than theirs, but we are still in the top with relationship to math performance. And then when we talk not about proficient or advanced, but about the total APR percentage, how much points we earned towards that scorecard, we ranked third, the third highest APR percentage, and then you can see the change of 2.7, which put us as the third district there. Again, these are not our regional counterparts. These are those districts that look most similar to us in makeup. So that was a lot of words from me and a lot of information. But what I would really like to do is turn over some of that conversation now to those that are making those scores come to magic on the screen through the work that they're doing on their campus. So we invited 3 building spotlights tonight. Sequiota Elementary to my right, Holland Elementary to my left, and then on the far end is Hickory Hills, and we'll talk specifically about middle school, but they brought people in elementary too because it's a K-8 journey. So what I'm going to do is let the principals introduce their team, but before they do that, I want you to see a little bit of their data before I turn it over to them. So we'll start with Sequiota. Abby, you want to go ahead and introduce your team, and then I'll talk about your data.
I would love to.
Okay.
Right on up here?
Whatever you want to
Can
do,
I just
girlfriend.
sit? Is
Do
that
it.
cool?
You can sit, but you might want to move that microphone closer.
Sure, no, I'll get that.
Yep.
Well, welcome, board, and hello. I don't know how to do, I could talk without that, but it's okay. Good evening. I am very happy here to present Team Sequiota. My name is Abby Hathcock. I'm the principal. This is Dr. Mary Miller. She's our instructional coach that we get the privilege of having. Next, well, it's not in order, but I'll go where we're sitting. It's fine. It's cool. This is Miss Sarah Schofield. She's a 4th grade teacher and also a guiding coalition member that we have on our team. And at the end right over here is Miss Cindy Duncan, who is a 5th grade teacher that we have and has been both part of the Sequiota community for a very long time.
So before Abby talks about what they did, I want you to see what their data looks like. So you can see here, just like we showed you the district 3-year APR summary, here is Sequiota's 3-year APR summary. So reading from the bottom up, you can see how many points they earned across that, and where they find themselves now earning 95.4% of their APR points.
Yeah.
Their scorecards are listed there. I won't spend a lot of time in the actual breakdown of those points, but you have them board in your slide deck. But I will go to this slide so that Abby can talk about the things they've done to shift their data. So I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Okay, well, as you're looking at the data specifically, a couple of things I just want to tee up a little bit before our team really gets to share the work that they've done within our building. So we know, and it's held to be true, that dysregulated students cannot learn. And so the big part of having a building to love and to manage is to make sure there's expectations and procedures set up straight up. And that is done through PBIS. And so we took a very big deep dive into the PBIS program. And not necessarily not the work that we've already done prior, so honoring that, but really polishing some of the procedures of the work that's been done prior to me getting to come to Sequiota. And so expectations and procedures of how school is done and how it is conducted, and making sure every stakeholder involved in that knows those expectations. So building-wide procedures, those were something that we really held true to. And also with that, when it came to testing time, that wasn't just something we talked about and we said, okay, go. We specifically spoke with teachers to make sure we all had the same idea of what our testing structure looked like. When we are testing, what does that look like? How do we expect that to happen with students and also families? That's a big stakeholder component to make sure family knows, hey, get to bed on time. Make sure we have breakfast. If they don't have breakfast, we'll feed them here. Setting them up for success. That was an over part of communication that we held true to last school year. There was a focus specifically on what standards we needed to do. And then the great work of specifically our curriculum department and being able to showcase item specifications. So when you look at standards that kids don't know, we looked at, okay, on the MAP test, what are questions that are being asked? What do they not know, and how do we get them ready to do that? So our team's going to kind of look at that specifically. A lot of that work has to be done within our PLT time. So that is grade level collaboration that we really, we're very intentional with the time because teachers' times are precious, and we have to make sure we use it very intentionally. And so we looked at that PLT time to where we could give them resources to use so they could set students up for success. A lot of that has to do with student data, and data should drive instruction. Period. That's just how it works. And so we made sure that we did that specifically. That was also done with the help of our just instructional coach team to be able to give teachers that support and for admin team to be able to give that pressure to couple together to make success. These types of conversations that happen, and as our principal team will tell you, does not happen by the principal. This happens by support of departments in our district. This is not just done by one building. It's done by many components of our district. And so that comes from the work of the curriculum team, as mentioned, but also our executive director team. When Dr. Masterson comes to talk to me about specific things, I'm not like, I think we should do this. And he's like, okay. We have intentional conversations, sorry, Tom, about what is being done. And these pieces and works can't happen, and things can't happen this way without having a think partner and being in the classrooms to see what do teachers and students need. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our team so they can talk about those specific things instructionally that they have seen in this time. I'm going to give you the microphone. Who wants it? Mrs. Duncan, she got it.
Okay, I'd just like to say that the MAP test is not a third, fourth, fifth grade test. It's a test throughout all the grade levels. And the team that we have at Sequoia is so supportive and amazing, and all the teachers are great. Everyone is focused on learning, kindergarten through fifth. And so knowing that and having that trust and support in the team really helps us to just build that community and know that we are all working for the same goal and moving kids forward. We do team building in the classroom as well, because students who are feeling, a part of things and trust in each other and the teacher are willing to take those academic risks and continue to learn. Everything we do is standards-based. We don't think there's no fluff. I'm sure that's the same in a lot of buildings, but we just continually are focusing on those standards. The conversations that we're having are student learning based. We don't really talk about a lot of other things. It's how did you do this? If we had a test or a quiz that morning, we're talking about how did they do on that? Which ones did they miss the most? How did you teach that if you did better than I did? And there's no ego involved. It's just you did better on that, so I'm going to learn from you, and we're going to move forward in that way. We just analyze everything together. We keep having those intentional conversations. Our PLTs are great, and that's the gist of it. And Sarah Schofield's going to talk about more specifics.
Hi. We use district and DESE resources like the Galileo test and map writing samples and released items. We would print those off and really take a deep dive into those, discuss how to answer the different questions and the different types of questions, analyze what the questions are asking, because just sometimes you don't know what the question's asking. Identify and cite evidence from the text is a big thing when you're talking about explaining your thinking and when the question is asking you to have evidence. We also use map writing samples from the DESE website. We reviewed the 3 types of writing that could appear on the map test in 4th grade. We never know what we're going to get, so it's either narrative, informative, or opinion, so we always have to make sure they're prepared for any one of those. We had the kids become the teacher, which they loved, and score different student samples of writing, looking specifically at organization and purpose, development and elaboration, and conventions. The purpose was for them to analyze and understand what was needed in a high-scoring piece of writing so that they could be prepared for what was expected of them. We also intentionally focused on just test-taking strategies, having a calm mindset when you're taking a test, knowing that it's okay if you don't know the answer, just those test-taking strategies to make sure that they can take their best guess and move forward. So.
Okay. Well, I'm going to speak a little bit more about how Ms. Duncan mentioned the team all the way through K through 5 has done effective teaching in every classroom to prepare all these students. So when they get to 3rd grade, we don't have giant gaps to fill. Those 3rd grade teachers can hit the ground running, and that gives them such an advantage. And as you can tell, we've talked a lot about collaborative culture and we have a very strong collaborative culture among the staff and the families and the students. They love it. Come work the car line with me some morning. The kids run into school. They can't wait to be there, and that's how the teachers feel, and that's what made us a success.
Aren't they great? So what they're not telling you is that the Secviota Christmas party is tonight.
Was before we got here,
Was
girl.
before they
We
got here.
pre-partied.
So they are gonna have to go take that party now afterwards because they came to be here with you. So, yeah, they are. They're like, hurry up, Holt, get it done. Okay, so thank you, Secviota team, for your hard work and for being here to share your success. We'll shift to Holland, which is to my left over here. And Dr. Tarash, will you introduce your team, and then I'll share a little bit of data and turn it back over to you.
Would love to. Thank you so much. I'm Rachel Tarash, the principal at Holland, and we have Ms. Ashley Daigle, who is our school community liaison. We have Ms. Stalina Snyder, who is our instructional coach. We have the wonderful Liz Weaver, who is teacher of all trades, but currently this year is third grade. And the steadfast Lori Willard, who has been kindergarten and shapes and molds our young ones.
Absolutely. So same data here on the APR summary for Holland, so you can see where they were in 22, significant increases to their APR report from the 2022 year to the 2024 year. Their specific pieces are here, but I will go again to this slide, which shows you that 3-year testing data and how they've progressed over time. So just for context there, from where they were to where they are now, and Rachel's going to highlight how they got there.
Thank you. All right, so Holland is a really wonderful, special little school. We're a community school. We are fortunate to house our district's deaf and hard of hearing program, which we are really fortunate and we love a lot. We have had, at least in the 4 years since I've been there, about a 75 to 78% free and reduced lunch rate. So we have a lot of hurdles in addition to all of the other things that we have dealt with. So one of the thing that I think I would say that is the most important thing is we have focused a real balance between instructional practice and increasing our positive climate and our climate and culture. And none of this could have happened without this incredible team and all of our other staff members, our paraprofessionals, our nutrition manager. She helps our students. I mean, everybody in our team is amazing. So these are just a few of the highlights. We're going to share some information, and then I'll wrap it back up. So we're going to shift over to instructional practices.
Good evening. At Holland, some of the instructional practices that we have utilized are prioritizing really the effective elements of teaching and working with Marzano's work to provide consistency and common language for all of our educators, not just our teachers in the classroom, but all of our other staff members that play a part in educating our kids. We have worked with aligning our curriculum with grade level standards to ensure rigor and relevance. We have worked to develop our professional learning teams, and we're working on progressively gaining independence in analyzing data and identifying targeted instruction and interventions for our students. With that, we utilize a lot of other members of our team as well. We also implement a lot of collaborative coaching, which I'm involved with a lot, and combining expertise of instructional coaches like myself and our district coach that also comes as well, and then our principal to deliver some comprehensive instructional support.
Hello. Some other things we do, we really try to safeguard that Tier 1 instruction time so that special ed students, speech students are not being pulled from that time, so that all the kids are getting that core direct instruction in the classroom. We utilize our specialty teachers like PE, art, music for intervention times. So like this year I have a coach comes in one morning for 30 minutes and pulls a student and works with letter ID or letter sounds, whatever that they may be struggling with. And then another day in the afternoon, our music teacher comes in and pulls a student and works on counting, another skill that they may be struggling with. So really utilizing our specialty teachers in an intervention role as well when they have their times. As a kindergarten, also, not that my students take the MAP test, but building that foundation, we know that objectives are super important in the lesson and letting them know what they are learning. So obviously, kindergarten, we're not really reading. So I have visual objectives so that they know where they are, so that if Dr. Trash comes in and is asking if they know what they're learning, they may not quite remember, but they know where to look and they can see the picture, and then they're able to talk about what they are learning.
Holland is a really unique and diverse group of students. We have a diverse group of students, as was mentioned. We house the DHH program, the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, and along with our ELL population has grown significantly over the past few years. So we have had some of challenges, but we have really been intentional about increasing academic language throughout the school day and pulling from some of the ELD, that department's resources. So we really focus on having the students answer in complete sentences throughout the school day and across multiple settings, whether that's in the morning meeting or in the gym in the morning, specialty classes, or just in the regular education room. So they are required to answer in complete sentences with a given a sentence stem. So we're using that academic vocabulary and embedding that in all of their learning throughout the day. Frequent checks for understanding is very important, especially when you are talking with students and teaching students who do have some difficulties, whether it be with their hearing loss or with just their proficiency with the English language. So frequent checks for understanding throughout the day as we are instructing in our instructional minutes. We regularly have a review of student data. We use data to inform all of our instruction, to look forward, and as we backwards plan, to use that data as where are the holes, what do we need to fill. And that data has really become one of the driving forces for us. I think that's what's made maybe some of the biggest changes has been that data and just the way we look at the data. It's not just a number. It's not just a percentage. All of that data represents individual students and an individual student and where they are and what they need to progress forwards. So it's not just an overall look at the whole school, but we break it down, and each one of those numbers represents a student, represents a child. And so I think that's what's made a huge difference in our success at Holland, along with being very strategic when it comes to the MAP performance. Last year, this year I'm in third grade. Last year I switched grades and I became a 4-5 teacher. Got to teach a split class and prepared them for the data or for the MAP. And with doing that, we were very intentional with the MOLEAP blocks, which are the released items, and aligning those to our instruction, aligning those to our assessments. So the students were very familiar with that, with the way the questions were going to be asked prior to even taking the MAP test.
Okay, that was our instruction, but now I have to tell you about our climate and culture, because that's been a huge part of our role here. So we have used all of our staff, as they mentioned, our specialty teachers have been utilized either to help in academics or to be a special friend, a special buddy, a check-in for our students, and all of our behavior staff. So our school counselor, our focus room paraprofessionals, our school community liaison, and we work really tightly with our world therapists. And so that's been a huge part to support our students to address their needs proactively. We have created intentional breaks for students that we know will need them. So the hope is that prior to them needing breaks, that we are putting them in place for them. We are in the process of, and this is being led by one of our paraprofessionals, creating the Hawk Flocks, where we are having jobs for all of our students, for many of our students who just need that extra amount of attention, love, support. They may struggle academically, but we know that they need to feel really positive and good. So we're trying to find places and opportunities for them to feel success that they might not feel throughout the day. What we didn't talk about is also we celebrate a lot. We celebrate the growth of our students, of our staff. So that's a really big part of our culture. And then leveraging the role of our school community liaison that allows me to do some of the instructional work so that while I'm also able to build relationships, and she's also building relationships with students as well.
Good evening. Along the vein of the climate and culture, the incorporation of PBIS, or positive behavior intervention supports and conscious discipline, emphasize the importance of understanding the brain states for our staff and students. We worked very diligently to realign our school-wide matrix to align with our school's specific mission and vision. What was it that we really wanted our students to do and know, and how were we going to get there? So this year we completely revised our building matrix, and we use that matrix as our curriculum when addressing students. As reminders, these are the expectations in the hallway. These are the expectations in the classroom. So very specific throughout our building. We frequently reteach school-wide expectations after every break. As we know, it's just like coming back to school after the long summer break, and oftentimes kiddos and staff, we all need to get checked back into the way that we do school. So we host a flight school that looks like sometimes taking classes to specific areas and just reminding them of the expectations of being safe and doing what they need to do, get to where they need to be, and get back to class, because that instruction time is waiting for them. That also provides consistency and clarity throughout our building. It's just how we use our language and the school-wide expectations. We also continuously review those current practices to ensure school-wide systems are effectively being implemented, and we modify those as needed. We do that by gathering feedback and, of course, utilizing our data through discipline numbers and attendance. So that's what we're doing in Holland.
Yeah, and then also just to reiterate, we love you guys too. And that we're so thankful for really of our whole district, the professional learning department, our curriculum, all of our school and safety resource officers. I've had the real privilege of working very closely, as I'll echo with Abby, working with my executive director, Cindy Webster. And so she's just really modeled for me and given me direct guidance, supportive guidance throughout the years. We've collaborated together. She's been a great mentor. She gives great feedback to me and really helped me to improve as a leader myself. And it's been really just a great run. So that's us at Holland.
More good things to come, right?
More good things to come.
That's right. Okay, so last but not least, Hickory, hanging on, they're moving the mic down here. So they were going to talk about their data in general, but really we wanted to highlight the middle school side specifically. So Stephanie, would you introduce your team that you brought with you?
Sure, absolutely. It's my pleasure to introduce, this is Mrs. Heather Killian. She is 7th grade math teacher and some 6th grade, because sometimes that happens. And she also serves as our math department head. I also have Lauren Sparks, who is our instructional coach, and then this is Julie Dipper, who teaches 4th grade at our school.
So again, same data, APR summary card, moving from the 2022 report all the way up through the 2024. So you can see nice movement specifically from last year into the current year with relationship to their percentage of points earned relative to APR. And then we will leave it here for our proficiency levels in comparison to the state in ELA specifically. So we'll turn it over to Stephanie to share her team's success.
Certainly. So I have a bit of a unique task in sitting here before you and actually celebrating the data of my school that I don't get to own any of this data. This is my first year as the principal at Hickory Hills School. And so what I would like to say is that, to start off with, is that all of the credit for the improvements that you see here rests firmly on the shoulders of the educators in that building and upon the former principal who was there that I was just lucky enough to follow in those footsteps and inherit some amazing systems that have been put into place. And so I know that we've got some information that the teachers are going to share with you, and so I'm going to let them share a little bit, and then I'll swing back around and wrap up with a few things.
Do you want me to go first? Or Julie, you want to go? I don't care. I'll go first. I look at that and it actually brings me to tears because our team works so hard. And I could, Happy Marie. It really, like, our team works so hard, and I could just echo so many things that these great educators have said, because between the PLT process and collaborating with our peers, our schedule, we were fortunate enough to get a schedule where our PLT time, our professional learning time, is built into our schedule. So we math educators 6 through 8 can collaborate at the same time, which is so important for not only building math skills, but just the vocabulary itself in math, because it's a foreign language. And if we can start with 6th grade with some of those vocabulary terms, they're used to them when they come to 7th grade and then 8th grade, that's been fantastic. But I mean, the data-driven instruction, we dig through data and more data and more data, and we just keep trying with those kids until they get it. I think there's so many things there. When they're talking about positive climate and culture, you know, and conscious discipline, create just simple things like I never thought this would work in my classroom, but creating jobs for kids in 7th grade. I thought, okay, I'm not really buying into this, but I'm going to give it a try. They just would thrive. Oh, I got a pencil tracker. I got an attendance keeper. I got all these things, and they love it. Creating that culture for them to feel okay to make mistakes. When I say, okay, I'm going to give you a piece of candy if you tell me a mistake you made. They tell me, and they're like, oh my, it's okay? That's okay to make mistakes? Did you all learn something from that mistake? Yeah. So between the data-driven instruction, the making kids feel okay, like it's okay to make mistakes, and we're all a family in here, and we're going to help each other figure it out. And, you know, having that PLT time has been fantastic. Digging through the data on all kinds of different assessments together. What did you do? Your test scores look better than mine. Somebody said something about not taking things personally. No, you did something better than I did. Share this with me because I need to do that. It's just been fantastic. But you have to have that culture when people are vulnerable enough and willing enough to share, and we have to be okay with making mistakes. So. Oh, yeah. My spiraling curriculum, yeah. So I got my master's last year. I finished it up. And my research that I did was on spiraling curriculum. Yeah, that's kind of a big piece. Thanks for that. I obviously didn't write anything down. And I did research on spiraling math concepts. And so our curriculum, I love our curriculum. The IM curriculum for middle school is fantastic in Desmos. But we don't always have time in the classroom to do practice problems. So the practice problems do spiral, and there are a couple of questions that will be at the end of the practice problems that will spiral back from another concept, but we don't always get to them. So we, as a department, are spiraling our standards, and we also use I call them PALs. As a department, we call them PALs, and then the kids say, oh, you do PALs too. They're problems of the week. So it's basically a bell ringer that we do Monday through Thursday for one problem that we're at the beginning of the year, we spiral back from the previous grade. But then once we start seeing those low performing standards, we start spiraling them back in. And we purposely use, map questions, Galileo questions, our common formative assessment questions. Like when we see they're just not getting this, so that we can reintroduce them. And I think that's really helped tremendously, because although lots of things do build in math, there are separate geometry, there's, data and statistics, there's algebra. They forget things like we do if you don't practice it. So the spiraling, I think, has helped a lot too. Yep. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. All right. My name's Julie Dipper, and I represent the elementary side. And there's two things that come to mind, particularly as I'm listening to each of these outstanding professionals here talk about their craft and their passion. And I came from a elementary building, and coming into a K through 8 building, it's a completely different world. It's a completely different world. And I have to put myself in the position of a parent bringing their child to a K through 8 building. You're not just there for elementary, you're there for 9 years. 9 years. And I believe we have a commitment to our parents and our community at large to truly invest in those kids in 9 years. The conversation that Heather's having here, it's not unusual. I've heard that. I've heard her talk about what goes on in her classroom, as it should be. We can talk vertical alignment and use the teacher terms, but really at the end of the day, if we're in a K through 8 building, I need to be going into her classroom, seeing what she's doing. She's coming into mine. This is not unusual, these conversations. So I was so glad to see that you posted up there the slide that showed that both the middle and the elementary have had success. And that's, I believe, in part due to the climate and culture that we have. A couple years ago, I thought our 8th grade students, this was their 4th principal that they've had since they've walked in our doors at Hickory, if they started in kindergarten. But what didn't change were the teachers. The teachers are still the same teachers that they see every day, and they know we're going to be there at the end of the day, and they know we're going to be there the following year, and that's what matters. So I would say climate and culture is huge. We have those discussions. Like I said, it's not unusual for me to go into a middle school classroom and say, hey, I know you. And they're like, Miss Dipper, to have that relationship with those kiddos. They come back into our classrooms as helpers. The middle school teachers come into my elementary classroom. I can say to Heather, what's your biggest struggles that you have with your students? She could say multiplication. FAFSA said, you got it. We're on it. You can count on us. So that's what we're doing internally within the building. But I would say externally with our parents and our community at large, we even take that a step further. And so when our outgoing 3rd grade teachers are getting ready to go into the summer and then get ready for 4th grade, the 4th grade teachers, we're writing letters to those 3rd grade parents. And we're saying, we are so excited to have your student next year. These are the things you can expect from us next year. Please be working on them. We would love your cooperation. And those kids come in that next year and they're on. They've already succeeded maybe 1 or 2 months worth of work for us because the parents know what to expect and they're already teaching into their kids over the summer. So we don't have to spend that first month getting them acclimated to being back into the building and getting acclimated to being back into school and to learning because they're already working with us hand in hand, partnering with us. Same thing. My 4th grade students, I'm writing letters to the 5th grade parents saying, this is what you can expect next year. That's the first thing I would say regarding climate and culture. Secondly, I would say being a non-title school, having the instructional support that we have had through our coaches has been amazing. Not everybody's used to working with data. Teachers aren't commonly used to being data analysis, if you will. So their help and their guidance that they have given to us and partnered with us of what to even look for in the data, how to extrapolate the information that we need to actually move the needle with these students has been extremely helpful
again, for a non-title school to have those resources. So I would say over the last few years, if you look at the trends, you would see that as we dove into the data, not individually, but also with the partners of our coaches, the light bulbs went on. And when we examine those 4 questions, one being, what do we want our students to know? You were talking, Heather, about it's okay to make mistakes. We have realized as teachers we've made some mistakes with what the learning standards were really saying. And we had to dissect them really closely and say, this is what it's saying, and then say to a colleague, that's how you interpreted it, that's not how I interpret it. Therefore, we may have taught them differently. So we had to really pause and look at those questions, those 4 essential questions that we ask ourselves in PLTs every day. What do we want our students to know? And then look at those standards, pull them apart, dissect them, and then say, okay, now I got it. Now let's take the tools and resources that are available to teach into the kids. So it's a combination. You can't just pinpoint 1 or 2 things, right? It's a whole community. It's your coaches, it's your principals, it's your department heads, it's all of us together, parents, stakeholders, all of us working together for it, which contributes to that success that you saw.
I am also in that unique position of this is my first year at Hickory, so I am joined. I was there for 9 years as a teacher. I left for 2 years to be at Jarrett as an instructional coach and joined back over when I got that opportunity because it's like home. And so
Desperately want to keep you.
And so I'm back in a new role. So first time as the coach there. But my first initial was just learning from the other coach. And so where have they been? What needs did she see? What feedback and data that they focused on? And then it dives back into that PLT time. That's a central focus for us. Just kind of, you've heard a little bit on the 4 questions, but the first one of what do we want our students to learn? With that, it takes, what does proficiency look like? So us figuring out what do we need to see and hear from our students to say that they've mastered this standard. Then it's how will we know if they've learned it? And so those key assessments that we have classroom assessments, those just hearing and seeing our students talk, but also the district common assessments that we have, and really centralizing of what are those questions, what's key vocabulary, key skills that we need to pull out for our students, and then how are we going to respond when the students do or don't learn it based off of that result. A lot of the things that we can look for is really diving into that data by individual students. What trends are we seeing? Is it a common question that they're not understanding? What point do they get it so that we can build from there when it comes to our supports and our reteaching, and really diving into each other of what instructional strategies do we have in our toolbox and how can we learn and grow from each other.
And so there's not a whole lot that I could say that hasn't already been said on the panel this evening, but what I can share with you is that when I was first selected as the next principal of Hickory Hills, one of the things that I started to do is to engage in conversations with the outgoing leader and to really say, where is this school in relation to teaching and learning, our teaching and learning environments, our assessment environments. I happened to be doing some site visits in the months of April and May last spring as I was kind of acclimating to the Hickory community, and that's just deep in the heart of MAP test time. So I actually got to be on site while some of the assessments were taking place. And a few things that I heard from the former principal was the amount of time and effort that was placed on MAP test prep, or just, assessment prep. The reality is our teachers are just going to teach their hearts out all day long, but we also have to teach our students how to take certain assessments, especially assessments that we don't write ourselves, right? And so it's important for us to prepare the students for the language of what they might see in the format and ensure that they know how to use those tools. So the same tools, the MOLE blocks, things like that are so vital and important in getting the students ready. One of the things that I also visited with the principal about is while I was there, I noticed that the schedule had completely changed for map test time. And that has, I know, happened in some buildings and might not happen in other buildings, and I began to inquire about why. And what the bottom line was is that they had completely flip-flopped the schedule because what they were trying to do is to create the environment where students would have the greatest opportunities for success to be successful at taking their test. So during these testing blocks, the hallways were locked down as it would be. There were no visits to the restroom. There were no visits just wandering around the hall, finding your best friend up the hall, right? And this was an environment to say that we're doing something different here. We're doing something really important and really different. And it's so important and it's so different that we want to make sure that our halls sound different and our classrooms look and sound different. And that surely that helps to shift the mindset and the focus of the educators and of the students. And that is one of the pieces that I believe that really went into play, that test time was really taken with a bit of seriousness. On the flip side of that, we do know that we want our students to be motivated all the time, but we could say that map test maybe at times feels not quite as inspiring to our students as we wish that it would be. And so in coming into play, and that was also a series of incentives that were put into play. And so there was some huge community support with gift cards and raffle drawings. And quite honestly, the way to a middle schooler's heart is through the use of hot Cheetos and Takis. And so we're not going to tell that to the nutrition services people, but I will say that I can tell you that there were kids who are very willing to engage in their learning just for even sometimes the smallest rewards of things like hot Cheetos and Takis and Chick-fil-A gift cards. That doesn't happen by mistake. That does require community support to have happen. The last couple of things that I would really say is just echoing what the team said about the PLC process. It takes collaborative conversations and genuinely digging into that data at the student level. So when I think about my time, what I've seen the teachers engaging in our activities, like looking at student work, it's one of my favorite times to come to PLC when the teachers actually bring student work connected to standards and they are showing off and they're saying, here's a project that my kids did in class and it actually meets 3 of the standards that we've been working on this quarter. They're taking a look at their common assessments and they're dissecting them ahead of time and thinking about what misconceptions might exist for our students based upon what this question is asking and how we taught it. And then after the assessments are over, then they bring all of them back and they look at them and they put them down side by side and they say, your class or this group of students did really well and this group did not. What do we need to do? Do we need to go back and do some more whole group instruction? Is this a small group instruction opportunity for us? And so data really is the key. And I know that you've heard that over and over. It really takes the whole package. It is data. It is understanding that each of those data points belongs to an individual student. It's your climate and culture. And for me, the last thing that I would say is that I've been incredibly fortunate to have the opportunity to work with executive directors in this district who have challenged me to grow and continue to become over the last, I had a conversation with Dr. Davis today. I've been a school principal for 19 years and I still haven't arrived, and that's a good thing. And I really rely on him and on the coaching that he gives me, on the coaching I received from Cindy Webster the past couple of years as well, to really challenge me and continue to grow me as a leader so that I can continue to support my staff. So thank you for allowing us to tell our school story today.
Can we just take a minute and honor these educators and leaders that chose to be with us tonight to highlight the work that's happening? And while they are educators for us in their daytime jobs, they have other things that they do on the off hours that they are not with us. So I'm going to let you exit stage left and stage right. Thank you for your time with us.
Wait just a
tonight.
second in case the board has questions. So give us, I know you need to go party and everything, so we're going to just kind of change.
Let them ask them now.
Yes, we'll let the board ask, before the educators leave, let the board ask them questions or make any comments, please.
I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you so much to this phenomenal group of educators. I'm an educator myself, and to hear the passion that you guys talk about your students, your work, oftentimes people underestimate how much it takes to be a good educator. And I'm hearing from you all the language, and I feel it. I feel it from you all, and it makes me excited to hear the way that you talk about your students, the testing, the work that goes into preparing them, and working together. The things that I heard that really excited me were the way that you talk about professional learning communities and how important it is for collaboration. That's underestimated sometimes, so I'm glad to hear that. I appreciate hearing about data, because while teachers may not have been trained initially always to think about data, the fact that you guys have embraced it, because I know that there was pushback at the beginning as we started talking about data, I know that, but to hear you now, everybody saying how important data is, that is rewarding to hear because it is important and we do make our decisions based on data. I also like hearing from the principals about the relationship that they have with the executive leadership team and how important that is for your continued development and working alongside of them. So everything that you guys said are the things that need to be heard, and I appreciate you guys and the work that you do. Thank you so much.
Other questions or comments?
And the climate and culture.
Yes.
Well, you should be all applauded. Thank you so very much for the work and the effort that you put forth. Heard a lot of encouraging information here. I think since I've been on the board, I just want to be clear that it's always been important to me, and I think Dr. Lathan could testify to this. I always look at her and it says, I don't want an increase in 2 points. I want an increase in 5 points. You remember me telling you that, from time to time? Well, it's incredible. When you look at Hickory Hills in 2022 to 2023, in their math, they went from 37.9, that's a 13% increase, to 50.9. That's really fantastic. Those are the kind of points that I always look for or try to encourage whatever curriculum that we have that we can help build that growth. But it's not all about their curriculum, too. It's about data being able to measure and everything. And it sounds like you all are just grabbing that and running with it. It's really fantastic. I think that is it's really awesome. And not to mention from 2023 to 2024, you went from 50.9 to 59. So that's another great leap in just 1 year. And when you look at it for your school, I'm looking at from the state level. Well, you're far and above where the state is for your math and your English or ELA. And that's incredible. It really is. That makes you feel like that maybe you're the standard, not everybody else, and they have something to climb up and reach for. Looking at Holland, I really wanted to mention something about Holland. They were below the state average when you look at the scores, and I'm going there now. And now in ELA and math, man, you're above state level now. Took you 3 years now to get there. I think that's fantabulous. Because I remember running for the Board of Education. I'm sitting there barking about all these scores, and how it is where the state is exceeding our levels. And I wanted to be on top. And so you all should be commended for that. It's really fantastic. Keep up the great work. And I just wanted to add that in there because that was the reason for me to come to the board, is try to help support programs that can get you there. Thank you very much.
Ladies, thank you, Mr. Left the men at home. Holland, what is your elementary? What is your student count?
About 220.
220. Okay, and what about Sequoia? 320. You're gonna win.
Whole school or just the middle school?
Whole school.
The whole school, like 750-ish. Heavy on the ish.
Depending on the day.
You're at one of the top math schools. You're going to have to take care of that ish. So, we talk about the increase.
She gets a pass.
Give her candy.
And you ladies said that we're not just looking at the percent of the improvement. look at the number of lives. I mean, every child that succeeds. I mean, and I'm really glad to hear they run into school. I know they should be walking, but what the heck, let them run.
That's not an expectation. They can run on the sidewalk in. That's fine.
That's good.
They cross the threshold, we go walk them feet, please, and thank you.
I probably ran in the hallways a little bit, but I'm sure that's because I was late. It's okay. It's okay. The lives that you change with success, with every child succeeding, and it won't stop. When the child just gets excited about learning, it won't stop. There'll be Lego champs, and there'll be, champions in high school, and there's so many different activities. I just can't thank you all enough. That's tremendous. You warm my heart. Thank you.
Do you have anything?
I'll say something.
I think Kelly's going to go first.
I'll keep it brief, but just want to say thank you for presenting tonight. And I agree, Ms. or Mrs. Dipper, how important the culture piece is. And the teachers educating in the classroom is really, like, by far the most important thing that leads to these sorts of results. And I think it's great to celebrate the results. I think it really speaks to the process, and over the last few years, we've been, I would say, improving processes, but ultimately it does come down to climate and culture. Just wanted to thank each of you for what you're doing to lead to these results. So thank you.
Okay, well, as a kind of the unofficial board historian here, I look at people at the tables, and our two boys started their education at Holland. It was a special school then, it's a special school now. Strong traditions back in the day and strong traditions now. And I thank you very much for that. It is a special school community, and we're really seeing the fruits of your labors right now. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And when I walked in the other day for a foundation meeting there, I thought, I don't even recognize Holland right now. I mean, it's just, it's a little different, but it feels good when you walk in, so good for you. Sequiota, I look at some members of your team and remember meeting one of them when she was in Pershing Junior High, and I was the assistant principal, and she was a special young lady then, and she's a consummate professional now. So, Ms. Schofield, good for you. And I love the enthusiasm of Ms. Hathcock and everybody.
You can't not like it.
I know it. I'm telling you, it's contagious. And the smiles, I was taking notes during each presentation, and I say on Sequiotas twice, those smiles, those smiles. So thank you very much. And then I come over to Hickory Hills, where I have a granddaughter now, and I see one of her very favorite teachers from 4th grade, and Murphy had to go back and take her a little present after she had left 4th grade and wanted to go back and see Miss Dipper. I remember having student teachers in Miss Sparks's math class, and lucky were the student teachers that were able to come through. And I think Murphy may have Miss Killian as well. Oh, well, I'm sorry about that.
Teaching accelerated, and she's in
Oh, okay, well, okay. But I think you had Brady, so anyway, there you go. And then Stephanie's been a friend for years, but it's overwhelming for me. I mean, I sit here and I listen through the lens of someone that sat where you are sitting right now, and look at the strategic work that you're doing. And I'm reminded, and I've said this before sitting up here, and I will say it again, good teachers make it look so easy. And that's why some people in the public think, well, I could do that. Well, I can do that. They have no idea the amount of planning and the amount of expertise and the amount of study that you have to do to get to the point where you are. And it used to be, it almost
became cliche for a while. Well, educators need to be lifelong learners. And so we kind of got tired of that phrase, but I listened to you tonight. That is exactly what you are. You have not, you have continued to hone your craft and to be the wonderful educators that you are. So it's inspirational to me. It's a bit emotional to me. So I just, I can't thank you enough. And I look at it now as a former parent and a grandparent and now from the school board lens and from somebody that spent my whole teaching and a professional career in R12. And we are proud of our past and we're preparing for the future. And you all are evidence, strong evidence of all of that. So thank you. Thank you.
Did you have questions?
Well, I'm going to let you guys all go home. You've had a long day. But
can you turn on our mic?
Do you want to? You didn't have yours
Yeah, I
on.
did. She
You
did.
did?
She turned
Oh,
it off.
okay. Finally, it's happening. Everybody has worked so hard, I feel like, for so many years. And the fruits of the labor, it's finally paying off. And I think the part that I need to say out loud is these are the COVID kids. So these are the performance results of kids who either started elementary school or spent the early years. We all know the first through third grade, right? If you're not there by second, third grade, your chances of being caught up are significantly diminished. It takes a lot. So this isn't just any year. This is a very special time on years of working really, really hard. So ditto everything that everybody said. I'm going to reserve some questions that don't have to do with schools, just more like broad perspective. But I have to say, so the best Christmas program I've been to has been Secretota. And so I expect an invitation for next year. So I'm really bummed that I missed it because it literally not just made my day, but made my week.
That's the purpose of school.
Yes. So thank you, everyone. Really appreciate you.
And just brief, that's okay, that's okay. Just a couple comments here. I just want to recognize that there are 13 of you here this evening, and I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you sharing, and I just want to acknowledge that that's just a small snippet of all SPS employees. And I forget who had mentioned, the nutrition service person was helping out, yes, the student. And I think that's important to recognize that from the very beginning of the day, when the student gets picked up by the bus driver, every single adult can either make or break that student for the day, whether they're going to have a good day of learning or they've had a bad experience and going to shut down. So I appreciate it. I also wrote down, y'all make it look easy. And it is not, I am terrified to walk into a classroom and teach students. I would not know what I was doing. And it's not easy. And I think just for us to hear all the time and all the teamwork that's being put in, that it's not a competition, it truly is a community in each one of your schools to make sure that all of our students are set up for success. And I just want to acknowledge that and say thank you. And finally, to echo some of my colleagues here, it's working. The data shows that it's working. What you are doing is working, and that's so important to see. Obviously, there's always going to be little hiccups along the way, but overall, what is happening in our schools is working. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for being here, and thank you and all SPS employees for everything that you do. We really appreciate it.
Kudos. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for your time. All right. So we will speed through the remainder of the slides. They are really just going to be summary or additions to what you heard from those that came related to the current work that we're doing and how we arrived at the results that we are getting and what we're going to continue to do. So you heard it a couple times echoed from different leaders relative to the work of the executive directors and the directors, and I would be remiss not to highlight in numeric form how that looks. So to date, as of Friday, December 13th, the executive directors and directors have done 728 visits to campuses and buildings. They have been in 1,214 classrooms and prioritized their work around these 3 areas. If you do the math, those numbers altogether do not equal 728 because they have an other category for all the other things that they spend time on a campus talking about. But I think when you think about this number last year, I believe it was in the 400-ish range. We are on campuses doing the work of setting those that you saw here up for success through coaching, observation, support with professional learning communities and professional learning, and supporting them with the systems and structures that they have. So I would be remiss not to acknowledge the team that I get the privilege of supporting that helps principals and teachers do the work that they're doing every day. In addition, I just think it's important for the board to know what those site visits look like. So this is not just simply an executive director showing up and walking around a couple classrooms. This is deep and meaningful work that leads to the language that you heard surfaced from all of the people that were here. So we are walking classrooms, we are talking about the curriculum, and we are supporting our leaders with providing in-time feedback to teachers. You heard a lot about professional learning communities. This is something we started talking to you about over 4 years ago. So to hear them utilize the language like it's every day today is certainly a celebration. That does not just occur. And so the work that our executive directors are doing, spending time in those PLTs and supporting the principal with the facilitation and empowering teachers to take ownership, which you saw tonight, is part of the work that they do. In addition to, you heard, PBIS. Right? The work on the relational side and the behavior side is what sets up our classrooms academically for success. What you see on the right is the learning cycle. So we are working as executive directors through what we call coaching implementation, and it looks in that way. So our EDs and directors, when they're on campuses, they help leaders identify pivotal next steps each time they're there to take them from one observation to the next observation to the next site visit in a cadence of support. So that's what they're doing in all the time that they spend on our campuses. We would be remiss not to talk about the impact that has on the supervision of teachers, right? Our goal, and it's a part of our strategic plan, is that we have an effective, highly qualified and effective teacher in every single classroom in SPS. Certainly you saw some of the best here tonight, but that looks like continuing to support our principals with how you effectively evaluate and hold not only our leaders accountable for success, but teachers accountable. So to date, we have done 3,496 teacher performance feedback forms in the KickUp platform. That is almost triple what it was this time last year. I don't say that to say that every time we walk into a space we're evaluating a teacher, but I do say it to say that the way that we can support teachers with learning is by giving them in-time feedback on what they're doing and helping them grow their practice. And so we're really proud of that work and proud of the growth that we're seeing in our teachers. We also continue to engage in what we call staff review processes, where we are asking our principals to come in and talk about the status of their teachers in their classrooms. How's it going? Who needs support? How can we support you with that to make sure that we're growing the efficacy of our teachers across each calendar year? Teach Forward, you heard a little bit about this already. One of the cries last year from Superintendent Solutions when we were visiting with teachers, Dr. Latham, myself, and Dr. Majors, was, can we infuse more choice opportunities and learning for our staff? We recognize that we have to have curriculum implementation professional learning, but when there are times that we can make an opportunity for choice, can we do that? And we were able to do that in the month of November. We offered over 67 sessions that were in direct alignment with the strategic plan, but were an answer to feedback. Much of that lived in the space of model classrooms, which you've heard us talk about, where teachers got to come together and experience lessons in time and see how that might look to play out some of our new curriculum and some of our older curriculum. The next slide really talks to some of those. I won't read them to you, but you can see the positive feedback we received. This looks not vastly different, but very different than prior year's feedback. So when you can get a 95% feedback saying that the content we were providing in professional learning was relevant, especially to educators, because they are the most critical because they don't like their time to be wasted, and that is okay. But we hit the mark on something that was really effective and supportive for them. This is a 4-point scale, so you can see where we scored with relationship to some of those questions. So proud of the work that the curriculum team did to honor teachers' requests, but to also give them high-quality professional learning to take back to their classrooms. We are still working really intensely with either our bottom 5% schools, so those that are identified by the state in the bottom 5% of schools across, as well as our schools that are identified as comprehensive. And that support looks like on-site, what we call communities of practice. So we are continuing to do that. We dive into those campuses' BSIP action steps. We walk majority of classrooms in the building, and we problem solve with the coaches, the administration, the curriculum teams, other team members from the district office come over, and it's really this collaborative effort to say, what additional supports do you need, and how can we activate those and deploy them on your campus? So that is still a tool we are utilizing and will continue to use to help our campuses most at promise. We also offered, and you heard about this at the beginning of this school year, but this is just an update to let you know that it did occur. We brought back Dr. John Hannigan. This supports our Dr. Lathan's and the ELT's goal around PBIS and the implementation of the behavioral supports to help the academics. So we were able to offer 2 staff members from every campus the opportunity to come and really deep dive into the next layer of interventions with relationship to PBIS. So that experience happened, and we had multiple takeaways and really good support and plans in place for campuses that might need additional support from this work. We also have been offering lots of 7-step training, which this is a training that's really intended to increase our language-rich practices in Tier 1 instruction. While it is facilitated by the members of our EL office primarily, it works in collaboration with our curriculum coordinators. Middle school specifically has utilized this tool and the guiding principles there to just build the efficacy of our teachers around how do we create environments that allow everybody access into rich practices. While I say this is specifically featuring the middle school side, we have many campuses at the elementary level that are also implementing 7 steps, and that's really about not only supporting our EL learners, but really the practices support anyone in the classroom. We also had our yearly beginning of year data and dessert, where we draw down the data that we have from our beginning of the year universal screener and give teams the opportunity to come together with their coaches to collaborate around that beginning of the year data. So that happened on September 23rd. And again, we were able to elevate some choice learning opportunities, which is direct feedback that we continue to hear from teachers. You heard me mention a little bit earlier about Superintendent Solutions. We had our first meeting with our teacher groups on October 2nd and 3rd. Dr. Lathan, myself, and Dr. Majors facilitate that time, and it's really the opportunity for teachers to come together from across the district and elevate things that are working and also talk about things, problem solve around things that are not. And so the topics there are what we spent majority of that time really delving into, and this group is continuing to help us solve some problems of practice, not only around curriculum and the academic team, but just really learning and teaching in general in SPS. The next meetings are scheduled for January 8th and 9th, so we'll check in and get a pulse check with our teachers around how things are going, not only in these areas, but in some other focus areas that they've already given us information about. Another piece of data and a new piece that we haven't shared with the board yet, but we now are excited to share, is you'll recall within the strategic plan, one of the action items is that we would be checking regularly on the implementation of curriculum across the district. And so what you see here is the K-5 visits that our curriculum coordinators are making on our campuses. So we did this in the spring of '24, and you can see the visits that our team did, 325 classrooms, and the implementation of the curriculum that they saw at that point was 43%. What you see in the ones below for September, October, and November are the counts that were done to date. So we, not only do we have all of our executive directors and directors out on campuses visiting and taking peeks inside of our classrooms to support our teachers and leaders, but we also have the curriculum experts coming in and saying, how is this going? What are we seeing relative to implementation? So that data is for elementary. We also are doing that more intentionally for our content areas that are in year one of implementation. So ELA, physical education, and computers are implementing year one a new curriculum. So we pull out their data specifically to see how that's going. That gives us in-time data for what we might need to shift or where we might need to target professional learning to help that implementation go up. So you can see that here for the items that are in year one. Secondary data, similar here. 6-12 unscheduled visits, you see the spring data in the first row, and then the September, October, and November data relative to the classrooms they're visiting, and what we're seeing with relationship to the % of implementation. And the same is true on the secondary side for those areas that are in, those content areas in year one of a new curriculum. Or a curriculum year. So math and PE specifically, the number of classrooms they visited, what's in use, and the integrity to that. When we talk about next steps specifically with curriculum implementation, our coordinators K-12 identified the following 4 things: that we are going to continue to calendar model classroom experiences. When we have had teachers that have participated, that has yielded really high results and turnkey information that they take back to their classrooms. We're also recognizing that sometimes that support for in a PLT needs to come from a coordinator to give expert knowledge and professional learning. We are continuing to develop microbursts of small group learning that a coordinator can facilitate or a director in one of our teams might facilitate for our campuses. And then we recognize, and you heard it here, Julie acknowledged, it helps me when I can go into another space in my own building to see what's happening. And so we, on the academic side, are thinking, how can we get teachers in other teachers' buildings or other teachers' classrooms in other buildings to calibrate around what's happening in classrooms. So not only within a building, but how can we do that within multiple buildings? So there is some recent research that's been done by the New Teacher Project talking about what we call trajectory changing schools. And when Dr. Majors and I were talking about this new learning that she and her team just came back from, we had some reflection relative to trajectory changing schools. And what they say in the research is they create a culture of belonging, they deliver consistent grade level instruction, and they build a coherent instructional program. They did not know that this was a part of my presentation tonight. But when you think about what you heard from those that are in the field doing the practice, I couldn't have scripted it better. This is the culture that we are creating in Springfield Public Schools, and the results are following. I would like to say we recognize 40% proficiency overall in our content areas is not where we want to be. So don't let me misrepresent the data. But what I will tell you is that we are creating a culture that is going to shift that and continue to shift it. And so we definitely have things to be proud of, and we're excited about the work that's happening in Springfield Public Schools. So thank you for the time tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Holt.
Yep.
Were there any questions from board members? It was an extensive presentation, and I know that we
Yes.
all
It's a long
appreciate
one.
it. Yep.
I just want to say, Dr. Holt, Dr. Majors, these educators in front of us today and the milestones that, I call it a milestone.
Yeah.
I mean, the points, the advancements that they've made, it wouldn't be for you two that helped get them there, and the people that help support what your objective is. And I just wanted to say thank you very much. Just as important and even more important is this is just an extension of your leadership, Dr. Lathan. And I don't know what to say. I'm very happy with a lot of the results here tonight. And I see that earlier results, different schools and that we continued to excel and take that data and use it, so we are getting better. And again, it's all about how you're pushing your people and making it work, and I'm just so proud of you. Thank you very much.
So I think it's, okay, so again, I think it's great to celebrate some of the results here. And Steve had alluded to this earlier about back when he was running for the board and fussing about a lot of things. And I'd have to check with our board historian here, but I think it would be a true statement to say that for the first time in something around 20 years, we've had consecutive years of improvement in proficiency. I think that's true, because prior to, back when I got involved and started running for the board, there was close to 15 years of stagnation or even decline. And I think that does speak to a cultural shift. And we do have a different board now than we had at that time, and we have different leadership. And I think it really speaks to a shift in thinking toward to what's important and what we're putting our efforts into. And I'm speaking not really from the point of view, or I'm not speaking to the board so much as I am to Dr. Lathan and your leadership in the district. And there has been, to me, a clear change in direction. And I think we are now seeing some results from that. And I agree, we're not complacent by any means. And I certainly feel that Dr. Lathan is not complacent and is motivated every day to continue this growth forward and is doing the right things. And I think those right things are things that we've addressed at the board table, and it's not any one thing. It's so many different things that include screen time and discipline and cell phones and curriculum implementation, attendance, the big push that you had for that, professional learning. And ultimately, as I was saying earlier, it all comes down to the people that get it done, and the culture that we create around those people.
Did you have some questions?
I did.
Hey.
Hi.
So I had questions before, but I always like to wait for the presentation, and you answered like most of them. But there's just a couple things that I'm still struggling with. First off, we got this for 2023. Can we get it for 2024? Because it's just a simple, because this is great, but it's in slide format. This is just like the bare bones.
You received it.
For 20, we got it for last year.
I think it would have been in the press
Get it
release,
for
right?
this?
The email.
Oh, it was in the email? Okay. It was one of those little.
We can scan it again.
I do. It's probably one of the links.
Yeah.
It's a link, yes.
Click here.
Again.
Click
Sorry.
here.
Okay. Lord. Okay. So the.
No respect.
Yeah, I know.
What to say.
You had the elementary schools batched, and it wasn't alphabetical. It wasn't based on FRL. Was that based on structure of leadership, directorship?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. If you go to just to this, so this is very elementary, but MPI, Math Proficiency Index. So real quick, what is that?
So that is how the points are accrued.
Okay.
And I will defer to all of the data theory questions to Bruce, because Kevin's not
Okay.
here.
So higher number, better.
Yes.
So it's just basically MAP results.
We want MPI to go up.
Okay,
That
right.
is the calculus or the
So-
metric that is used. that
So
the
I'm
numbers
looking
fold
at
into.
this, and
Oh, thank you, Tammy.
our MPI went up in every category, but it I thought it would have been a much bigger point differential, but apparently it wasn't, because even though the percentages of points earned is like big shifts, like 50 to 75%, like huge swings, it didn't translate into the points earned. Does that make sense? And I saw you talk about science, and I was looking at that, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on with science. So is science tested only in 5 and 8?
Correct.
Okay.
And then the biology EOC.
Right. But the slide you had on science, everybody went up, but then somehow there's that, so in the student, so there's the overall science, then there's the growth, and then within each one, there's all students and student group. But I guess what I don't understand is science went up, but we didn't capture the points on the APR.
Yeah.
Like what is that?
So do you want to talk MPI calculation with that specifically?
Do you know what I'm asking? It's like we did better in science and the graph and the numbers, but then when I
The
look
data
at.
that's there, right, is the percent of students that scored proficient or advanced. MPI is calculated on all of our performance bands, not just the proficient or advanced kids. So right below basic, basic, proficient or advanced. The data that you're getting here is the lump of proficient or advanced.
So what, that slide and the graphs are actual proficiency in advanced. So that's a straight up percentage.
Correct.
Whereas the MPIs are all those different categories.
Yes.
Okay.
Of all
And
four.
science was just
grades
just
5 and
tiny
8.
bit less. And is that, no, in the APR, not that,
APR report card.
in this report,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And it went back just a little bit, and that's because of, did you say fifth grade science? Is that where?
So the total MPI we scored for overall science is 370 points, right? It was an increase, a proficient or advanced change of 1.9. So that,
We went from 360, hold on, we went from 367 to 370. And for student groups, we went from 330 to 329. So that teeny tiny less than 1 point dropped our, if you then move over to possible points and points earned, it translated into a bigger amount. So it's just, is this just the number shell game?
It is. And so a thing that we have done specifically, and we did it at our last job, like with principals, is we categorized their MPI scores by content area and said, this is immovable, you're not gonna reach it, not gonna be able to move a category here, don't focus your time there. Still do what you're doing. We still want more kids in proficient or advanced, but we're gonna give you the place where you are the closest to moving your MPI into the next bucket, which will allocate you more points. It is a little bit of a numbers game with relationship to the APR scorecard.
Okay.
But the percent proficient or advanced, we're always wanting to move kids to
We
those
always want to move that.
categories.
That's actually the number one goal, but that doesn't always translate into MPI.
It may not always translate into the larger district
larger,
APR scorecard. Where you will see it is in the building scorecards.
That's what I was actually, that was my next question, because then
Mhm.
I looked at the buildings and it's like, okay, all this great stuff's happening. Why am I struggling with the science? All right. So what do you think is the component that is preventing us from advancing in the science part in terms of the points earned?
I mean, I would have to dig specifically into each building's APR or each building's.
My timer went away. I don't know how much time I have. I'm sorry.
But what I'm going to say is to sit here and tell you that it's one silver bullet or a magic bullet to how we're going to get district science points to increase is not the game, right? The game is the building level conversations about their specific MPI, about their specific scores proficient or advanced, which is why we have those conversations in our Java-like meetings, which we literally just had. Like, here's where you should double down your efforts because your MPI is in a position that's movable versus like you're multiple points away from jumping into a category.
I'm going
that
to
will get you more
think about
points.
this and digest it, and then maybe we can have another conversation another day. And then I'm going to wait for my next round because I have some like housekeeping questions. Okay. Sorry, I didn't realize. The timer went away.
I'm sorry.
I was keeping track. I write it down as well, so I was
I
keeping
won't
track.
go to the
but
slide next time. I'll leave your timer.
It's fine. Okay, other board member questions or comments? Yeah.
Well, I had some, but Miriam took my time, so I don't know if I can.
You get your own time, don't you?
Your time?
I know, I'm just being
Oh.
funny. Trying to be funny, anyway. I was interested in the term trajectory of changing schools. That's a new one to me.
New research just came out.
I'll be interested to learn more about that. And then just a quick thank you to you and your team. The presentations are thorough and they're informative, they're well done. And for us, sitting up here, it's a deep dive. So, thank you for making it manageable. But we may have to hear it more than once, because
Okay.
that's how we learn. So thank you.
Yep.
Did you have anything?
Jolly good job.
I know. I just.
I
You
just
could
want
say
you to know, I'm not sure if I understood everything, but I
Okay.
nodded in like I did.
Thank you.
Great job. Thank
Got
you.
it.
Okay, that brings us back around. Oh, he's in the restroom. Do you have anything? All right, Miriam, you're back up.
I'm up, okay. Real quick, so on the science again, for the individual schools, it had zeros or stars, and it said that it had been contracted because of too low numbers.
Give me a slide.
Just do Holland. Hold on, let me move down. Last slide. 49.
Okay.
So on the academic achievement growth for science, they got 3 of their 4 points, which is an improvement over last year, but then for student groups, it's 0. Well, I know they have English language learners and they have hard of hearing students. So how is that 0?
Because it's about how many kids are in the cell. So if you don't have a certain number of kids that fall into that student group and qualify, the data, it doesn't draw.
But they do have those students. It's Holland.
Not that were tested in that 5th grade content area.
What was that again?
Not that were tested in 5th grade science.
Well, there were like no students that were.
It wasn't that they were no, I think it's 30. Is it 30 kids?
It requires at least 30
Have to have
students
30
to
tests.
then
Okay, so
calculate
these are the little,
points.
okay.
30
so then,
tests to-
And then
to
some of them say 0, some of them have stars. Okay, got it. Thank you.
So if you always go across to see cell size, that tells you that we didn't have enough in the group
Cell
for it
size,
to
okay.
count.
Okay, got it. You said the math curriculum 6 through 12 is year 1. Can you remind me what it is?
I may have
again?
misspoke that. It's not that it's year 1, it's that we just cycled back through and they kept IM.
Okay,
So we-
that's what I thought. I was
Yeah.
like, wait, what did I
They
miss?
just went through and decided they were going to keep it. So it's not new, but essentially what we shifted or modified is now being looked at in the classroom, just
Okay.
like it would be if we had a new curriculum.
Okay.
Yep.
But it's not year 1. Okay, fantastic. So the 7 Steps Leadership Series.
Yep.
I guess I missed it in previous presentations. So is that like a form of professional development? It's for teachers? Okay, got it. On the school comparison to the other districts.
Yep.
I don't even know where that is.
It's okay, I'll find it. You keep going so you don't lose time.
I thought North Kansas City was the second largest school district. Did it not make the count because they don't have our FRL rate, or did they like get fractured into 2 districts?
FRL is.
It was due to FRL 2 years ago. Yes.
Yep. Yep.
Wait, what slide is that on?
So 36 it starts
Is it
for comparables. So we utilize enrollment and FRL to determine our state comparables.
Right, so Columbia's, so North Kansas City did not make this list, because it made the list last year when you were making comparisons.
We
Are they
try
s-
to, we
are they
try
still
to
the
honor
second-
it
they s-
annually and look at where they are with enrollment and where they are with FRL.
FRL, so they missed the mark on FRL, is that it? They're still the second largest.
I don't know about their status, I only know ours.
I'm always curious how far ahead of them we are.
Bruce is saying yes.
Yeah, they're in the low 20,000 right now.
They're where?
They're around 20,000 students. right
20,000, so we're still way ahead of them, okay. Thank you for that. And then I had slide 64.
Which one? Okay. Yep. Feedback?
Okay, so this isn't the topic, but, and Board Member Byrne, you're not looking. Slide 64. So to me, this is my favorite slide.
Yeah.
Because we have talked about this for 3 years now. This is what comes to the board, and we have to sign off on it. We got to spend a certain percentage of our budget on professional development.
Yep, it's part of the
What is that called?
conversation. Yep. 1% money.
1%, yes. Wow. This was the hidden gem in this presentation. And this is what really moves the work and drives. You know, you can have the best curriculum, the best teachers with the best intent.
Yep.
But if they're not able to and willing, open to growth, and if the growth opportunities aren't present, especially we have a lot of attrition, newer teachers, this is, wow.
We are very proud of the team and the design and the rollout and the
This
execution
is like-
of that learning.
Like a 180 from what it was when I got on the board in terms of professional development in those early years. Remember? Thank you.
Welcome. Okay. Thank you.
That takes us to item 8.01, board policy adoptions and revisions. We were provided these board policies, adoption and revisions. The board was provided these on December the 2nd for review, and the board has asked for a little bit more time before we vote on them, and so they will be brought forward for a vote during the January 14th, 2025 combined meeting. Prior to that time, if any board members have questions, of course, please direct those to Dr. Lathan. Sure.
I'll be brief, I promise. Well, I want to thank Dr. Lathan for allowing us to have a first read and then delaying the approval until the next meeting. So I'd asked for that, and I know you guys probably all saw that email. I just want to emphasize that. Okay. Promise it'll be less than a minute. I just want to emphasize that for me, so I don't see any issues with the policies that have come to us. What really matters, and I think we're finally seeing the results tonight, it's about the processes, the people and the processes, though. So I'm always looking for ways to improve the processes. And I did not realize that we were the only ones who had access to like the changes, like this has been lined through and the red is going away, the green is coming on. So I really appreciate this opportunity to have the first read and then have it become available to the public after the meeting, and they can look at the proposed changes. And because for me, the way I look at it is I don't know what I don't know. And I look at our policies sort of like our laws. These are our laws. And all the T's must be crossed and all the I's must be dotted. So if there's an opportunity to have more eyes on a document to get the best, the most perfect product, the better. So I think this is good.
So I'm just going to kick a dead horse here.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
The last time we had policies, I think you mentioned, Dr. Lathan, that so the MSBA, their attorneys make recommendations to us. We review that, maybe make some changes, goes in front of the board, and we adopt what is our policy. And the last time we did this, you had said that you had intended to correct where the MSBA keeps changing pronouns. His
I
and
knew you were going
her,
to say this. It
they.
should be corrected.
Okay.
Yes,
So,
it should be corrected.
Perfect. So if we can make sure that when this does come around to vote, that those aren't in there, that would help me vote yes for this. And I love if that is our stance as a district to just not accept that. That would make me happy as one board member from the MSBA's recommendations. Beyond that,
It's in what was posted Friday.
beyond that, I'll just take up my beef with MSBA. So we can do it on our end, and I'll fight this fight at the MSBA level so that they hopefully won't keep doing this to every other district.
This board has decided that that's not a hill worth dying on, if you will. And so now anytime an MSBA policy is presented, we have changed it back to his or her.
That's great. Thank you. There's two of the policies in front of us. Had it, but apparently it's being changed.
If you notice any more, please alert us, but they should have all been caught.
Oh, I sure will.
From Friday? From December 2nd or whenever you received them up to Friday, but Friday should have had all the changes.
Not.
Right, so from the email to posting of Friday, they were updated, yes.
When I looked on Monday, there were two policies that still had that in there.
But like yesterday?
Yes.
On the uploaded documents?
Not the
On
email.
board docs.
I looked at them today. I didn't see it.
On board docs.
Okay, if you can.
You were
just
looking
point-
for it too.
if
No,
you can
You knew it was
point 'em
coming.
out.
I knew it was coming, and I looked at it today, and I didn't see any.
So if you can point out the two. 'Cause they
I'll
should
go
have
look
changed.
again, but as of yesterday, that's what I saw on board docs.
Any further board member comments or questions? And again, we'll have time between now and January if we've got any other comments. Okay. All right. Item 9.01, there are no change orders.
No, so there are no change orders, and the content wasn't pulled before it was posted Friday, so that's why you were able to see that. But we still responded to your question.
And then there was.
It'll be on in January, right? Yes, but your question has already been answered, so, yeah.
Okay. And that takes us to item 10.01, Superintendent's update.
Yes, good evening again, board members. Last year this time, I shared with you my top 10 as it relates to what we've accomplished as a team and also for Team SPS. And so I just want to summarize this 2024 by once again thanking the board, thanking you all for your service. I want to thank you for your approval in October of a new board policy that during the 25-26 school year that would have provide transportation to an additional over 1,000 students. So that was our number one for this year. And so thank you. Our graduation rate, you heard through the release of our publications and our presentation tonight, 5th consecutive year of over 1,900 students graduating, our graduation rate at 97.4%. So really excited about that. Of course, we've already talked about our improved academic performance. That's number 3. Number 4, read to succeed. And I encourage and remind everyone to read over the holiday. But remember, the first Thursday of each month, we drop everything and read for 30 minutes, anytime that you choose. We rolled out standards-based report cards this school year in October. Videos were shared with teachers and also parents on the understanding of how to analyze those standards-based report cards. District of choice, I'm excited that we continue to afford choice across our entire district for all students and families. Staff engagement, that continues. I think that's one of the things I would say I'm most proud of what I heard when I arrived in 2021 at Parkview High School. People not talking about the lack of transparency in SPS, and pointing at a community member that was at that meeting that can say that we have increased communication not only with our public but also internally through Let's Talk, SPS University, Superintendent Solutions, Gather with Granita, Principal for a Day for our business leaders. So very proud about that. Also, number 8, community and partnership engagement, just how we continue to partner with our community. Proposition S, as we've completed, we held 4 ribbon cuttings this fall: Pittman Elementary School, Manhout Elementary School, Watkins Elementary School, Wilder. So 4 of 6 storm shelters have been completed and opened. Really excited. And number 10, collaboration. Just a special thank you to all members of Team SPS, including our Board of Education, for your ongoing work. It's wonderful to live in a community, once again, where it doesn't matter who's out front, and when we win as a community, and that's a blessing to live in this community. Happy holidays to everyone. I hope you enjoy your time with your families and friends, and your pets, for those who are wonderful pet owners. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lathan. That takes us to item 11.01, board comments. Are there any board comments this evening?
Merry Christmas.
Short, sweet, to the point.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Rock Out 2025.
I wanted to make a comment regarding our the SRO officer that spoke earlier this evening. The thought of cutting any SRO positions really makes me uncomfortable, and I know that we are contemplating what cuts are coming, and as those discussions further, I would really like to hone in on this. I guess I'd just say I appreciate him being willing to come up and to speak, and this is something that I think is something we should take very seriously, and something that I certainly will be following up on. And Merry Christmas.
I want to make a few comments. I really want to thank the individuals that stepped outside their comfort zone and to share their insights and their feedback. It was tremendously valuable to me, and it was greatly appreciated. I genuinely believe that more dialogue is better. And I think when I say that, I speak for all of the board members up here. The Board of Education is here to listen and to learn, and then to share that feedback. And I want to reiterate the many ways that the public can reach us, because I think it's valuable to come back to that. And I made a list here so that you can reach us by email through board communications. You can reach us on the Let's Talk platform that pops up on the right side of the screen when you go to sbs.org. You can certainly come and communicate with us through board comments. And Kelly made a comment just now about the officer that came, and I'm going to make some comments about dyslexia. We don't just hear you, we listen to you. And also, you can email us individually. I think that we all welcome, I certainly do, And I also want to say that Dr. Lathan is very available. She's available through different platforms, not just through Superintendent Solutions for the staff, but she is online and in person, and she just wrapped up one on December 3rd, which was anybody and everybody could sign up and have a tabletop discussion around the table with Dr. Lathan, and I heard a lot of positive feedback from that. So, and I can personally say that that is such a difference from the previous leadership we had. I'm telling you, it was like a fortress that could not be penetrated. So we strive to do better in being accessible. And so in that same vein, I'm going to say, if you have suggestions on how we can be even more available, I am certainly open to it. And I just laid out all the ways that you can get in touch with us. That was important for me to make that comment. 2, I want to talk about dyslexia. I want to thank Dr. Lathan for sharing the process and the testing and the services that are available to all our students. It really bothered me at the last board meeting. So this is something that's available for free to every SBS student. It looks a little bit different depending on what grade level you're at, but all students have access to testing. And then one thing and if anybody's interested in it, reach out to us, and any one of us or the board secretary can share that with you. The only thing I think that wasn't on there, it stated all the primary, secondary, tertiary forms of instructions and supports, but also students can qualify for IEP and 504 and special ed programs. So there's a lot more to provide on the dyslexia front. And so I'm really pleased with, we have people come, they speak, we go back, we have conversations, and then just wanted to report that back. Before moving on to my third point, I made a point here on the tails of what the discussions we've had and the improvement we've seen. Having a diversity of positions and ideas truly allows for growth. And I think that this board has exemplified that, and we are seeing the results. So personally, I cannot emphasize enough how welcome feedback is. Whether you agree with us or don't agree with us, feedback is always welcome. Just today, I had somebody reach out to me about a curriculum concern regarding teen health and wellness, and I'll be sharing that with Dr. Lathan. So I just cannot emphasize that enough. All right. The next point I want to make is we are definitely in the cold and flu season. And I just want to reiterate and remind everyone that we are practicing healthy screen time because we care about the mental health of our students and we want them to have the best educational outcomes. So while students aren't allowed to take their Chromebooks home, kindergarten through 8th grade, and that's designed so that they have the best outcomes, if you have a child that's sick, reach out to the school, and I would ask for the student's Chromebook so that they can keep up with the work. So I just needed to mention that because sometimes parents feel that, oh, we can't have a Chromebook, we can't get the work done. And so I think it's important to mention that you can have the Chromebook whenever you want, even when your child isn't sick. We just want to make sure that you're aware of that and that you are properly supervising your students at home. And then lastly, I want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas. And I'm so looking forward to all the great things we're going to do in 2025.
Thank you.
I appreciate everybody's remarks, truly. I would like to give a shout out to our transportation department employees. On December the 7th, and this has been a longstanding tradition, with them, they are bell ringers for the Salvation Army at Battlefield Mall. And I think that that service that they're providing speaks to their character and their dedication and the time that they're willing to give back to the community over and above the very challenging job that they have in delivering students safely to and from school. Also, the Springfield Public Schools Foundation, from February 1st through the 14th, will have a campaign called Love SPS campaign, and there are different ways that you can contribute to that. There are large sponsorships, there are smaller sponsorships, but all of it is designed to give directly back to the schools. You can even buy a t-shirt if you would like, or a sweatshirt, but you have to order that by January the 17th, and that's on their Facebook page if you're interested. But this organization, and you saw Natalie Murdoch here earlier, they do so many things to support our staff and our community. And tomorrow, they're giving away winter grants in the next day. So they continue to give and go over and above and support what's going on in our schools. Let's see here. Yeah, don't forget to order your shirt by January 17th. Kara Stasel has been recognized and has recently received some recognition in terms of school finance and operations certification. That is a huge deal for people in her area of expertise, and we're proud that she works here in Springfield Public Schools and appreciate that. And I already thanked Dr. Holt. I wanted to include that there. So thank you to everyone. And I too would say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, and enjoy your time. We have limited time on this planet, and it's important to embrace those that you love. So take care of yourselves, and we will see you in January.
Next year.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just to echo what some of my other board members have said, yes, please enjoy your time, enjoy your break, well-deserved. We'll see you in 2025. Our next board meeting will be January 14th. It will be a combined meeting, and then we'll have executive session on January 21st. We will see you in 2025, and at this time, I'll entertain a motion that the board adjourn our board meeting. Motion from Board Member Provance. Do I have a second? Second from Board Member Byrne. And at this time, we will vote. And the motion carries 7-0.
Already got into it.
You already got into it?
Yeah.